Chapter 1088. Wow, he's so handsome. Why does he look so much like Gyo Ikkai? Could he be Gyo Ikkai's descendant? But it's been 10,000 years. Even if he has descendants, they should have changed a lot, right? Didn't you hear what that youth said? This person claims to be Gyo Ikkai's ancestor. Where's his ancestor? He gave Gyo Ikkai pointers. He's so handsome when he's bragging. Everyone started whispering. Oh, Wang Feng raised his eyebrows and looked at the youth. He couldn't help but laugh. If I say so, then so be it. If you don't believe me, then don't believe me. For some reason, the youth had a strange feeling as he looked at the mysterious youth in front of him. It was very strange. There was a kind of closeness that made it hard for him to be angry. What was even more shocking was that the other half of this youth's face was exactly the same as the white-clothed Pope-Diff Wang Feng. I think you're pretending to be Uncle Feng. Senior Gyo Ikkai, right? The youth looked around coldly. Otherwise, maybe you're the Wang you're talking about? You, Wang Feng, are your ancestor, and you're Wang Feng's descendant? If not, you can show your soul power and rank, and everything will be clear. Gyo Ikkai is an expert who surpasses the god rank. As his ancestor, you're naturally stronger than him. Wang Feng laughed when he heard this. Why do I need others to prove and explain my actions? Just treat it as I'm talking nonsense. The youth was speechless. After he finished speaking, Wang Feng left. Tanya and Bei looked at each other, as if they were saying, could it be true? The difference in strength between the two was too great. It couldn't be true at all. However, this mysterious expert Wang Feng didn't give any explanation. This made them even more suspicious. Hui Yuhao also hurriedly left. The youth looked at Wang Feng's back, and a strange look flashed across his eyes. Tanya and Bei didn't ask about the statue anymore. However, they still had doubts in their hearts. However, Wang Feng's appearance brought a huge shock to the Shrek Academy. No matter what, with his face being so similar to the 9-1 open half of his face, it was bound to attract attention. Wang Feng had wanted to take a look at the exact location of the Sea God's Pavilion, but he had left the Shrek Academy in advance and found a hotel to rest. He planned to visit the Shrek Academy tomorrow. Hui Yuhao, on the other hand, had officially entered Shrek Academy as a specially invited student. Wang Feng didn't care too much about it. He just wanted to let him develop on his own. At this stage, he had already taught them what he needed to tell them. The atmosphere of the academy was something he should have experienced at his age. On the contrary, it was useless for him to stay by his side. It seems like little Wudong really went down to the lower domain. Wang Feng recalled the young man he saw during the day. With his perception, he could easily see through the other party's disguise. Little 3, you've lost contact with the Douluo continent. How could you be so careless as to let your daughter sneak into the lower realm? Wang Feng was speechless. This was not a good thing. Could it be that he had to help the mistress take a look at her daughter? Forget it. Let nature take its course. Wang Feng pondered. Little Wudong's memories seemed to have been partially sealed. She had descended from the god realm without permission. She wasn't a god. Logically speaking, it shouldn't be as simple as her memories being sealed. Unless someone from the lower domain helped her. Oh, it should be Great Ming and Second Ming. After the two of them were revived by Tang San, they were arranged to take over the Clear Sky sect according to Little 3's description. He thought for a while. Wang Feng sighed and released Long Xie. Boss, that young man's aura seems familiar. Did he come to see you a long time ago? He lay on the ground. He rolled on the ground lazily. Before he came to the Shrek Academy, Long Xie's cultivation had reached 1,000 years. After cultivating beside Wang Feng and absorbing Wang Feng's drop of essence blood, Long Xie's abilities had skyrocketed. However, he still needed some time to reach 10,000 years. Wang Feng's soul power had also increased by 2 ranks. In just a few days, his abilities had improved significantly. After 1,000 years, Long Xie had another soul skill, Soul-Devouring Crag Dragon Wave. It was a special soul skill. As Long Xie's spirit was filled with evil thoughts, this didn't change. After fusing with this crag dragon, Wang Feng's drop of essence blood and life soul contract made this crag dragon extraordinary. As his cultivation increased, it slowly changed. The more he cultivated, the greater the change. This soul-devouring crag dragon wave was a special soul skill. There were two situations. One was passive. It could devour an enemy's energy attack and reflect it back to the enemy. The other was to spit out a dirt yellow light wave that could petrify an enemy, causing great damage to the enemy. According to normal circumstances, Wang Feng's soul power should be around rank 30 right now. However, the amount of soul power required for 7 purple origin sources was simply too much. Just the first one was far from enough. Wang Feng could only fill the purple origin with a large amount of soul power he had absorbed and compress it to a high degree. She'd have come to see me. Wang Feng nodded. That's interesting. Long Xie chuckled. She's not your brother's daughter, is she? It seems like there's a problem in the God realm. By the way, why do you want to go to the Sea God's Pavilion? What's so good about that place? Wang Feng smiled. He thought to himself, you won't know where the system is even if I tell you. I want to revisit the place and reminisce about the past. Wang Feng said casually. Bullshit. Long Xie said indignantly. There are many strong people in the Sea God's Pavilion. I think you want me to be beaten up, don't you? If you want to enter the Sea God's Pavilion, the people from the Shrek Academy will make many requests. If I force my way in, I'll be beaten up even more. If they fight, you'll have to let me fight. Brother Lin hasn't come out yet. Long Xie was smart. He guessed it right away. Isn't that good? Wang Feng was surprised. The more you're beaten up, the faster your cultivation will improve. At the same time, you can help me spread the live soul contract. I'll benefit more from it too. He did benefit from it. 1,000-year Long Xie. Wang Feng's first soul ring had reached the 1,000-year level. It had turned from white to purple. It had a low starting point, but it grew so fast that it made people's hair stand on end. The 1,000-year rock dragon strike was very strong. The increase in attack and defense went from 50% to 200%. At the same time, it had the special effect of rock transformation and rock power. Rock power, as the name suggested, was a special force that could be sent into the enemy's body through contact. The effect of this special rock force was directly effective on soul power. It would make the enemy's soul power stagnant and difficult to use. Rock power and rock power, one on the outside and one on the inside. Even the 10,000-year centipede wouldn't be able to escape from his punch. This was the result of the life-soul contract granting the soul ring the ability to grow. End of chapter. Chapter 1089. His soul skill had evolved, and it wasn't just simply becoming stronger. Soul skill evolution referred to the acquisition of new abilities. The strengthening of soul skills was merely an increase in their original abilities. For most soul masters, it was almost impossible for their soul skills to evolve. Soul skills would only become stronger as their soul power increased. However, a life soul contract was enough. You're right. Long Xie flipped over. Boss, I discovered that this crag dragon seems to possess a trace of the dragon god's bloodline. Normally, this bloodline shouldn't be awakened. The probability of this happening is 1 in a million. However, your essence blood is amazing. It's very likely that it will awaken the bloodline in this rock dragon. When that happens, I might possess the purest dragon god's bloodline. Wang Feng was stunned when he heard this. He had heard from Long Xie that the dragon god had 9 direct descendants. They all possessed the purest dragon god's bloodline. All of them were very strong. The Ditan that Long Xie mentioned in the Great Stardow Forest was a descendant of one of these bloodlines. Which one? Wang Feng asked. I'm not telling you. Long Xie chuckled. However, this bloodline is too weak. If I want to fully awaken this bloodline, I might need a few more drops of your essence blood to help me evolve a few more times. How dare you keep me in suspense? Wang Feng chuckled. I know which bloodline it is. Don't worry. If that's the case, it's fine. It was easy to guess. He could guess it based on the crag dragon's attributes. However, Wang Feng didn't expect this to happen. With his essence blood, he was able to awaken the crag dragon's bloodline. Wang Feng guessed that it wasn't as simple as 1 or 2 drops. After all, if this crag dragon really did possess the dragon god's bloodline, it would be extremely weak. Long Xie was conservative about the probability of 1 in a million. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that it was 1 in a million. Normally, it was impossible for a bloodline to awaken. Such a bloodline was too weak, so it didn't have any effect on the crag dragon. This was why the crag dragon was an ordinary soul beast. Speaking of which, I wonder if Lin Jun has changed? Long Xie was quite curious. I feel like this is called being born from an egg. There should be some changes. It's no longer just the Lin Lord of Ice Empress who controls the absolute ice power of heaven and earth. Wang Feng smiled. It would probably take a few more days. He would be able to see it soon. The man and the beast chatted for a while. He continued to cultivate until the next day. The next day, Wang Feng went to Shrek Academy again. Big brother Wang, I've told the Academy about your desire to go to the Sea God's Pavilion. It might be a little troublesome. Bei Bei said somewhat helplessly. Because of what happened yesterday, the Academy also knows about it. 9-1 Kai is an extremely respected figure in the Academy. To be more precise, he is an extremely respected figure in the continent. You said those words again. The Academy doesn't have a good impression of you. However, the Academy doesn't intend to make things difficult for you. If you want to enter the Sea God's Pavilion, you have to be acknowledged by it. Bei Bei and Tanya had already done everything that he could. Today, Shrek Academy was divided into 2 departments, the inner and outer departments. The outer court was equivalent to the 6th grade of primary school. The inner yard was the middle and high schools. Of course, this was just an analogy. There were a total of 12 school years. They were divided into 2 major departments, the Martial Soul Department and the Soul Tool Department. Bei Bei and Tanya were both from the outer court. If they wanted to enter the Sea God's Pavilion as students from the outer court, it would be impossible. However, their identities were special. One was the sect master of the Tang sect, while the other was a direct disciple of the Blue Lightning Tyrant sect. The Tang sect had always had a good relationship with Shrek Academy. Only with this relationship could there be room for negotiation. Otherwise, just anyone would want to enter the Sea God's Pavilion. With Shrek Academy's pride, they wouldn't even bother with the other party. Who's the current pavilion master of the Sea God's Pavilion? Wang Feng asked. The inner court calls him Elder Xian. Bei Bei said carefully, he's a rank 99 titled De. His abilities are very frightening. At the same time, he's one of the 3 honorary heavenly kings of the Central Martial Soul Palace, Heavenly King Tao Tai. Wang Feng nodded slightly. The 12 heavenly kings came from the 3 political districts. Every political district had 4 spots. These 12 Dalu heavenly kings all had the right to make decisions. Other than their abilities, they also had a lot of power. Honorary heavenly kings were specially created. They only had reputation and represented the Federation's supreme martial power. They didn't have the power to make decisions. This was mainly because the Shrek Academy had a special status. They wouldn't participate in political affairs. Therefore, the master of the Sea God's Pavilion couldn't become one of the 12 heavenly kings. Otherwise, the Shrek Academy would have too much power. Once the Academy was mixed with power, the Academy's original intentions would be influenced by political affairs. Their goals would become impure. With the title of Honorary Heavenly King, the Shrek Academy could implement many strict rules. These strict rules were the reason why Shrek Academy was able to continue to prosper and flourish for so long. The other 2 honorary heavenly kings are on Sea God's Island and in the extreme north. Bei Bei said, these honorary heavenly kings are a symbol of honor. They are also a symbol of the Federation's recognition. There are only 3 spots. Wang Feng nodded slightly and said, let's go. I want to see how difficult it is to enter the Sea God's Pavilion. Tanya and Bei Bei nodded and brought Wang Feng towards the Shrek Academy. The Shrek Academy seemed to be especially lively today. The reason for the liveliness was naturally because of Wang Feng's words in front of the statue yesterday, as well as his appearance. When Tanya and Bei Bei brought Wang Feng into the Shrek Academy again, there were many people on both sides of the main road. They were all watching excitedly. However, these were all outer courtyard students. Tanya and Bei Bei braced themselves and brought Wang Feng along the main road. They walked past the different colored teaching buildings. They came to the shore of a man-made lake. Dense heaven and earth yuan qi surged towards them. The lake's surface was sparkling, and it rippled with an intoxicating halo. There was a small island in the center of the lake that was a few thousand meters in radius. On the island was the Sea God's Pavilion. The reason why it was called the Sea God's Pavilion was because during the fourth Soul Beast formation, the Sea God's Island was of great help to humans in the battle between the aquatic soul beasts and the land creatures. In addition, Tang San of the Shrek's 7 monsters had become a god-ranked expert and was respectfully called the Sea God. The Shrek Academy built the Sea God's Pavilion. It gathered the most powerful experts in the academy, as well as the most talented students. There was no path that led to the small island in the center. You could either fly or swim over. At this moment, in front of the small island, there were a few teachers standing on the shore. Their expressions were cold and solemn. Every one of them exuded an unusually strong aura. "You are Wang Feng? I heard from Xiaoya that you want to enter the Sea God's Pavilion." A woman who was about 40 years old walked out from the front. She revealed a meaningful smile on her face. "You dare to call yourself the ancestor of the white-clothed Popetiff Wang Feng. Do you know that if the Central Martial Spirit Palace finds out, you will be committing a crime? P.S. More updates tomorrow." That's all for today. End of chapter. Chapter 1090. A refreshing breeze blew by the lakeside. If it was in the past, many students and couples would enjoy this refreshing breeze together. But now, it was just a breeze that brushed past their shoulders. They were all focused in front. By the lakeside, the surrounding students looked at the confrontation between the mysterious man and the teachers. It was a crime to say that it was a crime. If it was just a statue of someone else's ancestor, it wouldn't be a big deal. Even the academy wouldn't care too much. But the white-clothed Popetiff Wang Feng was too special. Not only was he very popular in the Shrek Academy, but he was also very popular in the entire Federation. The reason was simple. In the 5 Soul Beast Wars back then, 3 of them were related to the 8 overlords of the extreme north. They had repeatedly helped humans at critical moments. And the reason why these 8 overlords helped was because of the white-clothed Popetiff Wang Feng. It was rumored that the white-clothed Popetiff and the 8 overlords of the extreme north were partners. Therefore, the Federation attached great importance to this. This teacher wasn't wrong. If the Federation knew that someone dared to call himself the white-clothed Popetiff Old Ancestor, it would be a crime. However, Wang Feng merely smiled. These people obviously wanted to intimidate him by bringing up this matter to intimidate him. They didn't really want to do it. Otherwise, the Shrek Academy would have already reported yesterday's matter to the Federation headquarters. It's useless to say more. Wang Feng looked at the Sea God's Pavilion on the island in the middle of the lake. If the Shrek Academy has any tricks, then use them. I came here to enter the Sea God's Pavilion, not to argue with you about who I am. This is not important. The teachers on the opposite side were stunned. For a moment, they looked at the mysterious man in front of them and didn't know how to deal with him. They were really here to show off their strength to Wang Feng. If they really wanted to deal with him, they just had to tell the Federation's Martial Spirit Palace, and the Federation headquarters would have sent people over as early as last night. However, they didn't do so. In fact, they wanted to do so, but they were suppressed by the Dean. It was very strange. Wang Fengxin said, if the Central Martial Spirit Palace really had a complete statue of him, they would know. They would definitely know that he looked exactly the same as Wang Feng. If they really sent someone here, they would definitely know that he looked exactly the same as Wang Feng. It was impossible for them to denounce him. At most, they would come to inquire. Wang Feng wasn't afraid of causing trouble. He had the capital to cause trouble. He was no longer the old Wang Feng who had to calculate the strength of both sides before doing anything. He still had to worry about the threat of a titled Dalu. He didn't need to do that to practice his trumpet now. Therefore, he had never worn a mask. Good lad, he's already showing off his moves. One of the teachers muttered, crazy enough. At this time, Wang Feng spoke again. Look at your Shrek Academy's gate. It's carved from the bones of a war-crazed magician, and the school motto is that actual combat is king. Why don't we just make a move? Inside the soul domain, Long Xia roared, Boss, you're the one who started this. How many punches do I have to take? It's all for your own good. Wang Feng transmitted his voice. Don't worry. I'll deal with those who are too weak. I won't let you out. Long Xia was speechless, hearing Wang Feng's words. In an instant, the air seemed to have solidified. The surrounding students were in an uproar. Tanya and Bei Bei were sweating profusely. This mysterious expert really didn't follow the rules. He didn't even wait for the teachers to show their skills before he directly made his move and started a fight. Now, the teachers of the academy were the ones in a passive position. Good. The middle-aged woman who spoke first laughed. However, can I see this as a challenge to the Shrek Academy? Although she was laughing, everyone could feel the coldness in her words. The other teachers were the same. They couldn't help but release their auras. Wang Feng smiled, but didn't say anything. Then let's go to the soul dueling area. He's right. The middle-aged woman said plainly, actual combat is king. I agree with him. Since you want to challenge the Shrek Academy, we'll accompany you to the end. If you have the strength, the Sea God's Pavilion will naturally open its doors for you. I'm Zhou Yi, an outer courtyard teacher. You're not challenging me alone. You're challenging the Shrek Academy. Teacher Zhou Yi's tone was ice-cold, and an amused expression surfaced on her seemingly aged face. The soul dueling area. It was a fighting arena that Shrek Academy had specially set up for students to fight in. It was also the most lively place in the academy. For soul masters, fighting was the most direct way to show their strength. Apart from that, it was also a place for soul masters to earn extra money. It was also one of the requirements for entering a higher school. However, it was rare for a teacher-level figure to step onto the soul dueling arena today. This mysterious and handsome man actually wanted to challenge the Shrek Academy. This was a big deal. One had to know that the teachers of the Shrek Academy, even those of the outer courtyard, were at least soul emperors. The news swept through the outer courtyard like a gust of wind. Even many students of the inner courtyard rushed over. Sea God's Pavilion in a conference room. Who is this Wang Feng? There were only a few people at the oval table in the spacious conference room. Pavilion Master and Elder Mu aren't here, and Dean Yin has gone to the Martial Spirit Palace. It's not easy to deal with this person. Are we really going to let him challenge the Shrek Academy? A woman in her 30s frowned as she spoke. To be honest, there have been a lot of people who have dared to get involved with those people and try to sneak into the academy. Descendants of Tang San's illegitimate son, descendants of the Flender Academy's distant relatives, descendants of the evil phoenix Douluo, who showed mercy in the brothel to suppress her evil fire. There are simply too many of them. We've seen a lot. However, this is the first time I've seen someone who dares to get involved with a white-clothed Popetiff. A sturdy man in his 40s or 50s laughed. However, this is a good thing. We just have to watch from the sidelines. Xiao Qian is right. A gentle laugh sounded. Our Shrek Academy isn't afraid of challenges. It doesn't matter who he pretends to be, but if he's strong enough, it's not impossible for him to enter the Sea God's Pavilion. Lishuan is the eldest senior sister of the Sea God's Pavilion. You're already a 7-ringed soul sage. Go out and take a look at the situation. See how strong this Wang Feng is. Yes, a gentle voice was heard. Soul dueling area. This was Hui Yu Hao's first time coming to this place. It was located in the north of the Martial Soul Department's campus. It was very wide, and it was an independent building. The building was hollow, and one could see the lively scene inside from the outside. End of chapter. Chapter 1091. Soul dueling arenas were built using special soul tools. There were two types of soul dueling arenas. The first type was a pure white, low-level soul dueling arena. The second type was a pure black, high-level soul dueling arena. These soul dueling arenas were developed by the Soul Tool Department. The difference between high-level and low-level soul dueling arenas was whether they could withstand an attack from Soul Sage. Most outer courtyard students used white, low-level soul dueling arenas. Black soul dueling arenas were usually used by teachers for teaching. Because teachers were relatively strong, they would often step onto black soul dueling arenas when they demonstrated their fighting skills to their students. Hence, they were called teaching soul dueling arenas. Shrek Academy focused on actual combat. Naturally, they established a soul dueling area to nurture their students' combat abilities. Usually, a sixth-year student would have to go through countless battles and ascend the soul dueling stage countless times. Shrek Academy had the most soul dueling arenas among the many academies on the continent. Inside this semicircular building, there were hundreds of soul dueling arenas, which were densely packed together. Every day, this place was packed with people. On the other side, there were 20 black soul dueling arenas. Wang Feng scanned them with his spiritual power. These soul dueling arenas were constructed with many complicated mechanisms. They weren't purely made of rare construction materials. Soul dueling arenas from 10,000 years ago were rarely suitable for soul tools. They were usually made of very special materials. They increased one's endurance. He's your master? At this moment, a youth was looking at Hui Yuhao with an arrogant look on his face. It's one thing for your master to pretend to be the ancestor of the 9-1 Open Sect. He even dared to challenge Shrek Academy to enter the Sea God's Pavilion. Other things aside, not many people have this kind of courage. However, according to my understanding of the Sea God's Pavilion, he doesn't stand a chance. When Hui Yuhao heard this, he frowned and looked at the youth unhappily. This youth was the one who had doubted his teacher. Hui Yuhao hadn't expected this youth to be his roommate after he'd successfully been assigned a dorm room. Wang Dong, my teacher isn't just courageous. He's also strong. Hui Yuhao retorted. He'll definitely enter the Sea God's Pavilion. He'd thought that this youth was an upperclassman. However, he hadn't expected him to be the same as him. He'd just entered the academy. They both had the same starting point, so he wasn't afraid of the other party. I've done my research on the Sea God's Pavilion before coming here. Wang Dong snorted coldly. The Sea God's Pavilion is the core of the Shrek Academy. Even among the inner court disciples, there were only a few who could enter. Inside was the most powerful group of people in Shrek Academy. It was the place where the elders of the academy resided. They are at least titled to. Even ordinary teachers aren't qualified to enter that place. Only those at the level of the principal and vice principal can enter. Do you think your teacher has the ability to do so? The two of them argued. Hui Yuhao's face turned red. We'll only know if I have that ability after we fight. Teacher isn't an ordinary soul master. He suddenly recalled that his teacher's soul power was only around rank 10. The students of the Sea God's Pavilion were all soul emperors at the very least. For example, the teachers from the outer yard on the stage. According to Bei Bei, one of them was a teacher who had just entered the school. He was extremely difficult to deal with. Not to mention the teacher from the outer yard. Even many of the students couldn't compare to him in terms of soul power. However, Hui Yuhao recalled that a teacher's strength couldn't be judged by his soul power rank. Then let's make a bet. The youth called Wang Dong suddenly laughed. You won against me in the dormitory yesterday. If this teacher of yours, let's not talk about entering the Sea God's Pavilion, but if he can defeat these teachers, I'll call you my boss. If he doesn't win, then you'll call me boss. I don't want to be your boss, nor do I want to call you boss. Hui Yuhao shook his head. I don't want to use my teacher's victory as a bet. Hearing this, Wang Dong immediately looked at Hui Yuhao in astonishment. I couldn't tell that you had such feelings for your teacher. However, with your talent and aptitude, there's an 80% chance that you were invited by the Shrek Academy. The fact that he accepted you as his disciple proves that his eyesight is ordinary. Hui Yuhao said, but yesterday, you were defeated by me, a person with an ordinary innate talent. Wang Dong immediately shut his mouth. However, there was a hint of unwillingness in his eyes. After entering the dormitory yesterday, he'd heard that this youth was the disciple of the self-proclaimed 9 founding ancestor. He'd been unhappy at that time, so he'd ruthlessly mocked him and planned to teach him a lesson. However, seeing that his opponent was too weak, he didn't have a martial soul. However, who would have thought that he'd actually lose? At this moment, the outrageously handsome Wang Feng had finally stepped onto the soul dueling stage. Watch the show. Wang Dong's mouth curved into a smile. On the stage, Wang Feng quietly stood on the stage with a peerless grace. Without mentioning anything else, his appearance and aura alone were enough to make most of the students fall head over heels for him. However, the teachers in front of him were clearly older and had experienced the ups and downs of the world. Naturally, they wouldn't be affected too much. Immediately, the teacher called Zhou. He took a step forward, and 6 soul rings flickered on her body. 3 purple and 3 black. A true soul emperor. Her martial soul was a ruler. A feral. Fuck, I was wondering why this martial soul gave me a familiar feeling. So it's that old monster, Zhou Yi. She's a famous demonic teacher from the outer courtyard. Less than 50% of the students under her tutelage remain. I heard that she used to teach the 6th grade, but because her methods were too harsh, she was demoted to the 1st grade. I wonder which class will be so unlucky this year. You'll know once you see her martial soul. Which student isn't afraid of her? A feral. One could imagine the power of a teacher who had such a tool as her martial soul. Furthermore, it wasn't an ordinary feral, but a dark steel feral. Whoever dared to disobey would be hit by the feral. Zhou Yi, teacher in charge of Year 1 Class 5. Rank 67 Soul Emperor. Martial Soul, Dark Steel Feral. Zhou Yi narrowed her eyes as she looked at the man in front of her. There weren't many teachers in the outer courtyard who were stronger than her. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been pushed out to negotiate with this mysterious Wang Feng. In fact, they hadn't expected him to step onto the soul dueling stage. In their original plan, they'd only wanted to make things difficult for him. They just let him leave. After all, they'd seen such a situation before. However, they'd never expected him to take the initiative to attack. So many years have passed, and you're still signing up for the same battle. Wang Feng found a little funny. However, this was his goal today, so he opened his mouth and said, Wang Feng, rank 18 Soul Contract Master. Martial Soul, Angel. End of chapter. Chapter 1092. In an instant, after hearing this, the entire crowd quieted down. The 3 words level 18 simply caused everyone present to be dumbfounded. Even the teachers were stunned for a long time. Their minds were filled with question marks, and they were astonished. Rank 18? Was he messing with them? This kind of shock came from the excessively high expectations in many people's hearts. They'd originally thought that this shockingly handsome, mysterious person definitely had some ability, since he dared to call himself the 9 Founders' ancestor. At the very least, he was a Soul Emperor and Soul Sage, right? Otherwise, why would he dare to challenge Shrek Academy? Just this. Wang Dong was stunned for a long time. Hui Yuhao, your teacher wants to enter the Sea God's Pavilion with his strength? This is simply a fool's dream. Don't even talk about these teachers. I feel like I could defeat him. I'm 3 ranks higher than him. My God, he's truly a waste of his looks. Teacher can easily defeat a 10,000-year savage beast. Hui Yuhao defended himself. His strength can't be judged by common sense. He's a soul contract master. Although he said this, Hui Yuhao was still somewhat worried. If his teacher was a soul contract master, wouldn't it cause a commotion once he released his soul beast? Teacher probably wants to bring the soul contract master to greater heights, right? Shrek Academy is the most influential academy on the continent. Hui Yuhao thought to himself. Teacher became famous in a single battle, so soul contract masters will definitely become famous in Shrek Academy. I'll be able to use Little Silver in battle in the future. This was a completely new profession. Hui Yuhao didn't dare to release Little Silver. After all, if others found out that he was raising a soul beast, the academy definitely wouldn't agree. Teacher clearly did this for the sake of not being discriminated against and treated differently in the academy. Thinking of this, Hui Yuhao felt moved. Teacher wasn't rashly trying to challenge Shrek Academy. A purple soul ring rose from Wang Feng's body and disappeared in a flash. There was only 1 soul ring, which meant that Wang Feng wasn't wrong. To the majority of soul masters today, a 1-ringed 1,000-year soul ring wasn't much. This was especially true for the geniuses of Shrek Academy. Their starting point was a 1-ringed 1,000-year soul ring. Zhou Yi stared at Wang Feng for a long time, but she couldn't see anything wrong with him. It really was a level 18 fluctuation. 1 ring for 1,000 years. However, Tanya and Bei Bei, who were below, were shocked. When they had first met, Hui Yuhao's soul rings had only been pale yellow. It had only been a week. It turned purple just like that. Soul rings can be upgraded automatically. Am I seeing things? Bei Bei lowered his voice. It's clearly a yellow soul ring. How did it become a purple soul ring in less than 10 days? Could it be that the soul beast has also become a 1,000-year soul beast? Could it be that this is what a soul renderer is? Tanya was in disbelief. Soul rings were almost impossible to upgrade. Even those rank 99 title Douluo only had their first soul rings from 100 or 1,000 years ago. This is too amazing. Both of them knew what it meant if their soul rings could be upgraded. This meant limitless possibilities. Every soul master had limitless possibilities. As Wang Feng's soul rings shone, the crowd, which had been quiet for a while, erupted into discussions. The few teachers were a little embarrassed. This was because it wasn't easy for them to make a move now. A soul emperor bullying a rank 10 soul master. After all, Shrek Academy still wanted to maintain some dignity. They had originally thought that Hui Yuhao was a tough nut to crack. Who would have thought that? He was just toying with them. At this moment, a figure jumped onto the stage and spoke with a clear voice. Teachers, I'm a new student. My name is Wang Dong. My soul power is at rank 21. Why don't you let me fight with him? I really like fighting too. Hui Yuhao was a little confused as he looked at Wang Dong. When did he jump onto the stage? Everyone was also a little surprised as they looked at the youth. Zhou Yi glanced at Wang Dong. Her eyes flashed slightly as she withdrew her martial soul. After exchanging glances with the other teachers, he nodded his head in agreement. Wang Feng didn't mind. Everything was within his expectations. In the beginning, Wang Feng hadn't thought of spreading the word about soul renderers in the Shrek Academy. He had wanted to wait for a period of time before going to the central Martial Soul Palace. However, after arriving at the Shrek Academy, he discovered that the influence of the current Shrek Academy was simply too great. He wanted to use this as an opportunity to spread the word about soul renderers so that everyone could understand the concept of soul renderers. This little girl. Wang Feng glanced at Wang Dong. You don't have any objections, right? Wang Dong narrowed his eyes as he looked at the mysterious youth in front of him. If I can't convince the people of the Shrek Academy, I won't be able to enter the Sea God's Pavilion. Wang Feng waved his hand. Since you want it, you can come and give it a try. After hearing this, a smile appeared on Wang Dong's face. Then I won't be polite. With that, Wang Dong shouted softly. In that instant, 2 purple soul rings lit up from Wang Dong's body. A pair of beautiful butterfly wings extended from Wang Dong's back. They were blue, but there were many ancient patterns on them. They were layered from top to bottom, and they flickered with a deep blue and light blue radiance. An aura of light radiated from the ancient patterns. A gem-like halo flickered around the wings. Sunlight shone on the wings, causing them to be filled with a magnificent radiance. They were like treasures in the human world. It's the radiant butterfly goddess, someone exclaimed. It was the most beautiful butterfly martial soul in the continent. It was also the most elite beast martial soul. Beautiful strength transcended the boundaries of species. Such a beautiful martial soul made Wang Feng very surprised. Tang San and Xiao Wu's daughter. How could she have such a martial soul? It wasn't the blue-silver emperor, nor was it the clear sky hammer. It didn't recognize soft bone either. Was it a butterfly? Even if it had mutated, it shouldn't have mutated to this extent, right? Even its species had mutated. Wang Fengxin said, this martial soul had the aura of a god. It was most likely a god from the god realm who had given its power to little Wudong when she was young. However, even if this radiant butterfly goddess was a god, it was still a beast god. It should have been a soul beast god, right? How is it? Are you scared? Wang Dong looked at Wang Feng with a smug look on his face. A little girl's temperament was undoubtedly revealed. Wang Feng laughed. Part of little Wutong's memories had been sealed. She had lived with the great Ming's, Air Ming, since she was young, and had even been sent to the Shrek Academy. It was actually not bad. If little Wudong had continued living in the God realm, she would have been even more domineering since she was a god king. Coupled with her exceptional talent and looks, she would probably be even more unruly when she grew up. She would be arrogant and ignorant of worldly affairs. She would also lose a lot of happiness and experiences. It was a good thing to send her to the mortal world to gain experience. Sometimes, people who were too good-looking and talented would lose a lot of their troubles. Wang Feng was an example. End of chapter. Chapter 1093. Come. A smile suddenly appeared on Wang Feng's face. His smile was like the melting of snow, the blooming of spring flowers, and the sprinkling of light onto the world. It was as if all the evil and troubles in the world had been dispelled by this smile. Wang Dong was stunned. He wasn't the only one. Many of the students below were stunned as well. Their faces couldn't help but blush. The smile on his perfect face seemed like it could kill both men and women. So handsome. A beautiful girl below clasped her hands in front of her heart and looked at him with infatuation. Wang Dong hurriedly dispelled the distracting thoughts in his heart and quickly told himself that this youth definitely wasn't the real Wang Feng, the white-clothed Pope Tiff. In the next moment, Wang Dong tapped the ground with the tip of his foot and kicked towards the youth in front of him. Wang Feng stood where he was, his smile disappearing. His expression was calm as he looked at the kick filled with soul power coming towards him. He gently stretched out his hand and shook it. An enormous and irresistible force instantly sent Wang Dong flying backwards. That exaggerated strength wasn't something a rank 18 soul master could possess. The scene around him flashed past like an illusion. A rope had unknowingly wrapped around his waist and pulled him back to a stop. He was only a step away from the soul dueling stage. Wang Dong relied on his wings to stabilize himself in midair. The rope was made of leaves. It was unknown how it had been glued together, but it was incomparably sturdy. He saw Wang Feng's figure at the end of the rope. With a gentle tug, countless leaves filled the sky and automatically flew behind him. What a miraculous method of control. It was clear that his opponent had acted in time and hadn't sent him flying. You're too slow and you're too weak, Wang Feng said. The radiant butterfly goddess is strong in flying and long-range attacks. It's not good in close combat. At the same time, the illusory beauty of your wings can interfere with your opponent's vision by absorbing sunlight. You didn't use any of these and rush forward in close combat without knowing your opponent's martial soul or strength. Little girl, didn't your two guardians teach you basic fighting techniques? As his voice faded away, the crowd immediately started discussing again. Wang Dong hadn't used his martial soul yet, but the strength he displayed with his every move revealed the tip of his mysterious strength. Wang Dong stared blankly at the youth in front of him. The sense of familiarity in his heart grew even stronger. Could it be that he knew about eldest father and a second father? You've lost. You may leave. Wang Feng waved his hand. Wang Dong was silent for a few seconds. Although the force from before was enormous, it was relatively gentle and didn't cause him any harm. Clearly, the other party was still controlling his power. It was hard to imagine that it was just an ordinary clap. He had such an exaggerated amount of power and was able to control it so skillfully. I refuse to accept this, Wang Dong said in a low voice. All right, then you can come again. Wang Feng still had some patience. If it were anyone else, Wang Feng would have sent them flying with a slap. In the next moment, Wang Dong learned his lesson and didn't rush forward. Instead, he stood where he was. The patterns on the blue butterfly wings suddenly lit up. It was as if countless rays of light were condensing, preparing for a powerful attack. Second soul skill, light of the butterfly goddess. Wang Dong let out a loud shout, causing the blue butterfly wings to shine even brighter. In the next moment, just as the butterfly wings on Wang Dong's back were about to release a powerful burst of energy, Hu Yuhao's eyes suddenly lit up. However, Wang Feng's figure disappeared from his line of sight. A gust of wind blew. In the back, a leisurely voice rang out. Before Wang Dong could turn his head, he felt an enormous force coming from behind him. It directly kicked him to the ground. Do you think your enemies are idiots? using a long-range skill while standing where you are? Wang Feng looked at Wang Dong, who was lying on the ground. Wang Dong struggled to crawl up from the ground. His eyes were slightly red, and his handsome face was covered in dust. This was the first time he had made a fool of himself in front of so many people. Then what can I do? I can only use this soul skill while standing where I am. Wang Dong said angrily to Wang Feng. The students from the One Pole Club had also seen it clearly. Wang Dong couldn't be blamed for this. The other teachers also frowned. Who made this rule? However, Wang Feng said, who made this rule that I can only use this soul skill while standing where I am? So many years have passed. Don't tell me that the soul skills you soul masters use have not changed at all. A few thousand years ago, many soul masters were able to use long-range soul skills while moving. Why can't you do it? This is because of the uniqueness of soul skills. Some soul skills can only be used while standing where they are. A teacher looked at Wang Dong's pitiful appearance and hurriedly spoke up for him. Ridiculous. Wang Feng shook his head. If it's really this kind of soul skill, can't you soul masters change it? After learning about soul skills, you clearly know that they have flaws. Why don't you try to change these flaws? You people from the Shrek Academy are all geniuses. You can't change those high-ranked soul skills, but you can't change these low-ranked soul skills? Wang Feng shook his head. Is it that hard to change soul skills? Or do you all think that you're stupid? After he finished speaking, everyone looked at him in astonishment. Wang Dong was also stunned. His face turned red and white. You're really stupid. However, you can only know if it's possible by experimenting and trying to change it. Little girl, you haven't thought about it even now. Wang Feng sighed. A soul master who doesn't have his own thoughts, no matter how strong his martial soul is or how outstanding his talent is, he's still a nobody. He's just a mediocre soul master. You won't be able to become a true expert if you follow the rules. After hearing these words, Wang Dong was stunned. Her eldest and second uncles had doted on her since she was young. Even if they'd trained her, they'd never said anything like this. Clap, clap, clap. The teacher, Zhou Yi, was the first to applaud. That makes a lot of sense. Student, you can go down first. His strength isn't something that you can resist. Wang Dong silently walked down. It was hard to imagine that the other party hadn't even used his martial soul and hadn't even released any soul power undulations. Why do I feel that Senior Wang is rather patient with this Wang Dong? Tanya whispered. My intuition tells me that Senior Wang has a close relationship with this Wang Dong. Oh, right, they're both surnamed Wang. Do you think it's him? Bei shook his head. It shouldn't be him. There are many people with the surname Wang. You're being too suspicious. However, we rarely think about changing soul skills. I remember that the experts of the past all liked to train their soul skills through various kinds of training. Even if they didn't evolve their soul skills, they could still improve the strength of their soul skills, as well as fix some of their fatal flaws. End of chapter. Chapter 1094. It's just that it's too difficult, so very few people will actually try it. Senior Wang's words are very reasonable. We're geniuses. How can geniuses be stopped by such difficulties? Tanya also nodded lightly. On the stage, Wang Feng looked at the teachers opposite him. Suddenly, his heart moved, and he looked at the crowd below. With his senses, he discovered that there were a few more powerful auras in the crowd. However, the more people that came, the more satisfied he was. Are you planning to personally come? Wang Feng looked at the teachers. No. However, Zhou Yi said with some interest, although you're only at rank 18, your vision is extraordinary, and your battle experience is extremely rich. There should be some students in the outer courtyard who want to challenge you. You don't mind, right? You want to challenge the Shrek Academy. I don't mind. Wang Feng laughed. If anyone else wants to come up, they can give it a try. Although his physical strength had been sealed, his body was still very weak. Even though he had 5 God King seals, not a single one of them had been undone. After he finished speaking, many of the female students below became restless. Soon a girl walked up. This girl was dainty and cute. She looked to be 13 or 14 years old, and she stared straight at Wang Feng. Big brother, you're so handsome," the dainty girl said with a bashful expression. "Hey, please don't use such vulgar words to praise me." Wang Feng sighed. "It'll make me very annoyed." The girl. "Big brother, you're so interesting." The dainty girl giggled. "Although you're very handsome, this is the first time I've seen someone with such a thick skin. However, I'll invite you to listen to a song." A 1,000-year soul ring lit up on the dainty girl's body, and an emerald green song appeared in her hand. "This song is very nice. Right, I'm called Xiao Xiao. My martial soul is a flute." Wang Feng looked at the flute in the girl's hand. There were 9 phoenix patterns faintly engraved on it, and it looked extremely extraordinary. "You're young, but you can play the flute." Wang Feng glanced at the dainty girl. Xiao Xiao's face turned red again, but she picked up the flute and started playing it. In an instant, the pleasant sound of the flute sounded like a clear spring under the girl's soft and beautiful lips. Unknowingly, many of the students were immersed in the pleasant sound of the flute. The clear and melodious sound of the flute changed abruptly in the middle of the flight, turning into a low and mournful wail. Everyone's mood also turned gloomy. The second half of the song also began to be filled with joy and joy. This continuous change caused everyone's mood to rise and fall along with the flute music. There were even many people who started to cry. Even the teachers with high soul power levels had heavy hearts, their eyes glistening with tears. This flute song was clearly extraordinary. The girl infused her spiritual power into the flute, but there were no soul power fluctuations. This kind of flute music had always been a unique skill. Does it sound good? When the girl let go of Chang Xiao, everyone was stunned for a long time. She blinked and asked, "Does Big Brother sound nice?" "It doesn't sound good." Wang Feng shook his head. The girl looked at Wang Feng in surprise. "Big Brother, you seem to be completely fine. Please remove the word seem. A mere flute song is enough to make your big brother lose his composure." Wang Feng saw through the little girl's thoughts with a glance. This little girl obviously didn't want to defeat him. She wanted to make him lose his composure. This was another level of defeat. "How could it be?" Xiao Xiao exclaimed, her face red. "This song, Qing Shui, is not an ordinary song. Even if my strength is low and I can't use 1/10 of its power, it is still effective on teachers. Even I was moved. How could it not be effective on you?" "Maybe it's because I'm too handsome," Wang Feng said. Xiao Xiao said bashfully, "I don't believe it. Big brother, how did you do it?" "Speaking of playing the flute, I know how to do it too," Wang Feng said. "Little girl, give me your flute. I'll play it too." "Really?" Xiao Xiao was surprised and didn't care that she had already used the flute. She ran in front of Wang Feng and gave him the flute with a red face. "Disperse your flute first, and use your soul power to condense it again." "How can you give me a flute that you've used before?" Wang Feng said. "Little girl, are you trying to take advantage of Big Brother?" Xiao Xiao. "No way." Xiao Xiao giggled. "I think you're very fun. Why don't you be my big brother in the future?" Thus, Xiao Xiao dispersed the flute before condensing it back together. "Sure." Wang Feng smiled faintly. "If you can withstand my song, I'll reluctantly be your big brother. If you can't, then I can't." He took Xiao Xiao's newly condensed flute. Wang Feng put to his mouth. "That's too easy," Xiao Xiao said confidently. "I've heard many flute songs. It's impossible to make Xiao Xiao lose her composure." "Boss, you really know how to play the flute? When did you learn it?" In the soul domain, Long Xie was surprised. "Boss, you know a lot of things." Wang Feng smiled. "But this song isn't a flute song, it's a flute song. There's one song that I have some feelings about now." Then, Wang Feng closed his eyes. The sound of the flute was heard. Instantly, everyone who had just regained their senses from Xiao Zhao's flute was shocked. The sound of the flute was heard, but it was calm and had an ancient feeling to it. It slowly came out from the holes of the flute, as if 10,000 years had passed, as the dusty memories were unlocked. Everyone felt as if they had walked for thousands of years. It was like a dream that had lasted for thousands of years. Looking at the changes in the world, the changes in the stars, the changes in the continent, everything in the world seemed unfamiliar. That kind of heaviness that had been experienced for countless years caused everyone's mind to be immersed in it, and they felt as if their souls were in mourning. After a few minutes, the flute song slowly disappeared. Wah wah wah. Xiao Xiao cried, opened her eyes, and looked at Big Brother in front of her with tears in her eyes. She sobbed and asked, "Big Brother, this song, what's the name of it?" She wasn't the only one. Many people couldn't bear the heavy feeling and started crying. Even the teachers were no exception. Strong spiritual power, coupled with the change of emotions, the influence of the song was on a completely different level. Perhaps no one could play this song better than Wang Feng. Dream of 1,000 Years. Wang Feng said slowly. This was one of the 3 songs that he learned from the sea, which on the sea god's island. Wang Feng, who had comprehended the seal for 10,000 years, had the deepest understanding of this song. Everyone looked on in a daze. They felt that the mysterious young man on the stage was really like this song. He had crossed over thousands of years and walked over from the distant ancient times. He carried an extraordinary magnificence that caused people to be deeply intoxicated by him. At this moment, a woman slowly walked in from outside. She was slightly stunned when she saw this scene. P.S. There are 5 more songs tonight. Please count the votes. End of chapter. Chapter 1095. Dream of 1,000 Years. Xiao Xiao mumbled a few words before asking, "Big Brother, have you lived for 1,000 years?" The loneliness and the sound of the flute and the ancient atmosphere it exuded could not be expressed if the feelings were poured into one's heart. This had nothing to do with the strength of one's mental power. It was related to one's experience. Xiao Xiao had played the flute for many years and naturally understood this. This song was called a dream of 1,000 years. Only those who had truly experienced the hardships of 1,000 years of history would be able to pour out such emotions that flowed into every part of their body like a stream. It was so infectious. However, it was rare for experts nowadays to be able to live for several hundred years. 1,000 years, that was almost impossible. Of course not, Wang Feng replied. Oh, Xiao Xiao nodded. This Big Brother should not be able to live for that long. She should be overthinking it. I have lived for 10,000 years, Wang Feng said in a hoarse voice. That vicissitude aura immediately stunned Xiao Xiao. 10,000 years? Xiao Xiao looked at Wang Feng in a daze. Then, why is it not called Dream of 1,000 Years? Xiao Xiao muttered. The teachers behind her were speechless. Did the silly girl really believe it? Because Dream of 1,000 Years sounds better, Wang Feng replied. Xiao Xiao. She looked at him blankly. However, in the next moment, Wang Feng laughed. You really believe it? After saying that, Wang Feng knocked the flute on Xiao Xiao's head and inserted it into the bun on her head. Ah! Xiao Xiao looked at Wang Feng. Big Brother was lying to me? Go down. Wang Feng waved his hand. When I have time, I will teach you 2 more songs. He had learned 2 songs from the Sea Witch. Demonic Soul Suppressing Song and Sea Calming Sacred Song. They were both songs with special effects. Speaking of which, he did not know what the current sea god's island was like. Okay. Little Xiao suddenly smiled happily and then walked down the stage. Wang Feng shook his head. These children were too young. Their minds were simple and not complicated. One could only judge a book by its cover. If an ugly person said that he wanted to teach you 2 songs, you would probably call him bad uncle without hesitation. Following Xiao Zhao's departure, a few other students came forward one after another. However, Wang Feng easily dealt with them. There was no other way, even if he didn't use his mental power. Stand here and call them. It was also very difficult for these children to cause any substantial harm to him. His physical body's strength had been sealed, but the toughness of his body, which was also its defensive power, still existed. Logically speaking, even a soul emperor shouldn't be able to harm him. Only a soul Douluo could do so. Even if they couldn't beat him, there weren't many people in this world who could hurt him. There was almost no one who could kill this incarnation of his. Of course, Wang Feng didn't exclude some experts. Because the world was too great, their battle prowess exceeded his own estimation. But don't play around, esoteric. As of now, Wang Feng could be considered to have cultivated the esoteric character to greater mastery. However, he was still quite a distance away from perfection. But with the esoteric character of the great success realm, the only way to reason with him was to blast him to smithereens. That was the only way to kill him. If he were to produce a spirit core, he would not die even if his head was chopped off. Once his God King seal was undone and his strength returned, he would be able to defeat a titled Douluo with a single punch. Of course, this wasn't very likely, because soul power was linked to the 7 purple origins, and the purple origin patterns were related to the God King seal. One person after another couldn't even last 3 moves against Wang Feng. When he was interested, Wang Feng would give them a few pointers and say a few words. With his rich cultivation, he could see through the flaws of these students, such as their martial soul usage, soul skills, combat techniques, and so on. He was just like Wang Dong from before. However, he was only interested occasionally. After all, not everyone was his little niece. He didn't care too much. Many of the students were rather excited. This was because they had to admit that fighting against this devastatingly handsome guy was a form of enjoyment, even if they were beaten up. They could even receive some pointers, so why not? The teachers at the side were also stunned when they saw this. They even gradually forgot that this youth's soul power was only at rank 18. That's not how you use a sword. If you want to use a sword, you have to first learn the sword. Oh no, you have to first learn the most basic moves of sword. Your martial soul is the green edge sword, an orthodox 3-foot-long green edge. First, you have to learn the basic moves, cut, stab. Practice each move 3,000 times a day before you consider your fancy soul skills. Brick-type martial soul? This was a peerless martial soul. Kid, work hard to cultivate to rank 70. When you awaken your tool, soul, true body, no one will be your match. As the saying goes, with a brick in hand, the world is mine. This isn't a trash martial soul. It can fight, defend, and even build a house. Kid, you have a bright future ahead of you. Oh, kid, where's your body soul? Where is it? Hurry up and show it. Don't waste my time. What? You're embarrassed? Fine, come over and tell me. Hiss hiss, your body soul is rather strong. It's actually in that part. Wait, all martial souls have their uses. Don't be discouraged. Train your middle finger more. You have to know that even a finger can become a killing weapon. In just half an hour, Wang Feng saw all sorts of strange martial souls. There were even some rare body souls. However, there were only 1 or 2 of them, and they weren't even his spiritual type martial soul. Over the past 10,000 years, a body soul had undergone the greatest mutation after the 5 energy tides. As the concentration of heaven and earth's origin energy increased, a human's body would involuntarily absorb it. This would cause one's body to mutate and awaken a body soul. This was the origin of body souls. However, in this era, body souls were relatively rare. Compared to 10,000 years ago, there were many different types of martial souls. Wang Feng clicked his tongue in wonder as he looked at them. At this moment, an uproar could be heard from below. A girl suddenly walked up. However, Wang Feng was slightly taken aback by this girl. This girl was very pretty. At least, she was one of a kind among these people. The girl looked to be around 15 years old. She had a graceful figure and beautiful golden wavy hair. Her skin was like ice and her bones were like jade. Her eyes were like limpid autumn water, clear and moving. Her beautiful eyes had an elegant temperament. Her facial features were as exquisite as a painting, and her eyebrows were soft and gentle. Wow, it's the outer courtyard's #1 beauty, Jiang Nanan. I didn't expect her to go up too. Seeing this girl go up on stage, many people below became excited for a moment. The outer courtyard's #1 beauty? Wang Feng looked at the girl in front of him in astonishment. She was indeed pretty. However, Wang Feng couldn't recognize her. He only knew about Hui Yuhao from the 2nd book. End of chapter. Chapter 1096. Furthermore, the world had already changed because of him. Judging from this girl's aura, she was probably one of the female characters in the original novel. Wang Feng could also vaguely feel a familiar aura from her. Shrek's Outer Courtyard's fifth-year student, Jiang Nan. My martial soul is the soft-boned rabbit, rank 32. Please advise me. The girl's voice was gentle, but it gave off an unapproachable feeling. Soft-boned rabbit. Wang Feng was startled. How did Xiao Wu's martial soul appear here? Wasn't this a joke? Wang Feng was speechless as he looked at the girl in front of him. Her aura was completely different from Xiao Wu's. A rank 32 soul elder was considered outstanding among these students. She wasn't even 15 years old, but her talent could only be considered average. If she was rank 42, Wang Feng felt that he could take a look at her. In reality, Xiao Wu was 100,000-year soft-boned rabbit, which was why she was able to cultivate so quickly. Wait, there's another force in this girl's body, twin martial souls. Wang Feng was incomparably astonished. If that was the case, then this girl's talent wasn't bad. Xiao Xiao also had twin martial souls. Although twin martial souls were still rare after 10,000 years, many soul beasts had undergone many changes due to the changes in the origin energy of heaven and earth. The probability of twin martial souls appearing had greatly increased. Naturally, it wasn't like 10,000 years ago when there were only a few of them in the entire continent. Below. Ah, silly boy, are you dazed? Can't you walk after seeing a beauty? Wang Dong looked disdainfully at the dazed Hui Yuhao. No, Hui Yuhao shook his head. I'm just thinking about when teacher plans to reveal his soul-bonded beast. Furthermore, I feel that although this girl is beautiful, she's still inferior to me. But he still can't compare to teacher, so why would I be in a daze? Wang Dong, this stinking brat is actually very reasonable. Wang Dong thought to himself. What's a soul-bonded beast? Wang Dong asked. Didn't teacher say that? He's a soul charmer, not a soul master. Hui Yuhao paused. Teacher has his own plans. I'll stop talking. Hearing this, Wang Dong was infuriated. She hated people who only spoke halfway. Bastard, hurry up and tell me what a soul charmer is. Wang Dong grabbed Hui Yuhao's shoulder and said fiercely. He was extremely curious about this Wang Feng. In his eyes, the other party was gradually shrouded in a layer of mystery. Regardless of whether or not he was the Nine Open Grand Ancestor, the other party was indeed capable. I'm not saying. Hui Yuhao was like a stubborn bull. Tanya and Bei Bei walked over. When they saw this scene, they immediately said sternly, Hey, you little Shota, how dare you bully our Hui Yuhao in public? Wang Dong snorted and let go of Hui Yuhao's shoulder. He hadn't used any strength at all. Tanya and Bei Bei both smiled. The two of them had actually heard their conversation. Little Shota, don't be impatient. You'll be able to see it in a while. Tanya glared at Wang Dong. Speaking of which, didn't you dislike him yesterday? Why did his attitude change today? Why are you so curious about Senior Wang? He's right. I admit that he is a man of ability. Naturally, I'm curious. Wang Dong said disapprovingly. His attitude isn't bad. Bibi said surprised. This young man seemed to be incomparably arrogant, but in his heart, he still had his own yardstick to measure. That's strange. Nan usually doesn't participate in this kind of thing. She also doesn't like to be in the limelight. Why is she on stage? Tanya asked curiously. Could it be that there's a problem with her cultivation? Teacher can't solve it, so she wants to give it a try? Bei Bei said. That shouldn't be the case, right? Tanya thought for a moment. She was quite familiar with Jiang Nan. She also knew what kind of person Jiang Nan was. Although she was extremely beautiful and talented, she was also very hardworking. As long as it wasn't a public exam, she rarely participated in it and avoided it as much as possible. What other reason could there be? Bei Bei asked doubtfully. Could it be that she's also taken a fancy to Senior Wang? It's not that easy for her to fall in love with someone else. Why did you use the word also? Tanya turned around and looked at Bei Bei vigilantly. Bei Bei was speechless. Xiaoya, what are you doing? Are you suspecting me? You're the only one I like. It's mainly because I saw that many girls were attracted to Senior Wang. That's why I used the word also. Bei Bei broke out in a cold sweat. Why are these girls so sensitive? I'll consider you a pass. Tanya said, let's watch the competition. On the stage, Jiang Nan was already charging towards Wang Feng. She was very fast. Among all the students present, She was the fastest that Wang Feng had ever seen. Although the soft-bone rabbit was an agility-type martial soul, she had clearly trained hard. Otherwise, she wouldn't be so fast. First soul skill, thousand-layered lock. Jiang Nanan was extremely fast. She was like a golden gust of wind. In the blink of an eye, she was already close to Wang Feng. Wang Feng didn't dodge. He allowed Jiang Nanan to jump up like a nimble little rabbit. Thousand-layered lock was a special soul skill. After the martial soul possessed the body's strong flexibility would be used to bind the enemy's four limbs like layers of shackles. If this move was used well, it could even distort the enemy's body and achieve the effect of killing them. Even if it wasn't used well, it could still subdue the enemy. When Jiang Nanan's hands grabbed onto Wang Feng's shoulders, her entire body became extremely soft. Her four limbs formed a strange arc, and she suddenly locked her legs onto Wang Feng's thighs. She wanted to bind Wang Feng just like that. However, it was clear that Wang Feng could feel the strong explosive power contained in Jiang Nanan's body, even though he was unmoving. Her four limbs didn't have any softness. They only felt like they were extremely strong, like iron chains. However, it didn't have any effect. Wang Feng's body didn't change at all. No matter how soft Jiang Nanan's body was, she couldn't change Wang Feng's body at all. He was like a pillar that supported the heavens. He stood there without moving. Although they were both soft-bone rabbits, Jiang Nanan's soul skill was obviously very different from Xiao Wu's. Strictly speaking, Jiang Nanan's soul skill wasn't as strong as Xiao Wu's. This was because Xiao Wu's body couldn't be compared to Jiang Nanan's. Wang Feng had fought with Xiao Wu and Tang Xin many times. He was naturally very familiar with Xiao Wu's moves. Even though Jiang Nanan's current strength was definitely stronger than Xiao Wu's, she couldn't bind him. Second soul skill, 10,000 kilograms fall. When he heard this soul skill, Wang Feng thought that he had misheard. You're just a little rabbit, and you're playing with 10,000 kilograms fall? You're already pretty good if you can weigh 50 kilograms, okay? However, as Jiang Nanan's second soul ring lit up, the weight of Jiang Nanan, who was trapping him behind, increased. If it were a 30-something soul master of the same rank, even a battle soul master with a beast martial soul would find it hard to bear. End of chapter. Chapter 1097. She'd probably be subconsciously flipped over. The purple soul ring gave Jiang Nanan a huge boost. However, Wang Feng still didn't move. Wang Feng faintly frowned, and a faint fragrance flashed past his nose. Immediately afterwards, he heard, third soul skill, twisting silk. In that instant, a special force came from Jiang Nanan's surroundings. It carried a strong, twisting force as it entered Wang Feng's body from all over. It was very destructive. This force seemed gentle, but it felt as if thousands of threads had wrapped around one's body, and one couldn't break free. This was a 10,000-year soul skill. Wang Feng even knew that this soul skill had most likely come from a ferocious ape. This kind of soul beast had slender limbs and wasn't large in size. It was good at using its body to wrap around its enemies. Furthermore, it was extremely intelligent and had cultivated this special technique. Jiang Nanan's feet suddenly landed on the ground, and she used this force to wreak havoc in her opponent's body, causing him to lose control of his body. Then, she skillfully used her knee to push against Wang Feng's back, wanting to use this to fling him away. However, at this moment, her body suddenly stiffened. Her face was slightly pale, and she took 2 steps back. However, nothing happened to Wang Feng. He turned around and looked at Jiang Nanan. Everyone was somewhat astonished. What had happened? Could it be that this mysterious youth had used some other method? Wang Feng looked at her, who was a few steps away, and seemed to understand something. Then, he suddenly punched towards Jiang Nanan. This punch was so fast that it didn't even leave behind an afterimage. Jiang Nanan was directly sent flying several meters. Her lower abdomen was hit. Pooh! A mouthful of thick blood was directly spat out from Jiang Nanan's mouth. In a split second, a few exclamations came from below. Nanan! Sister Nanan! They were clearly Jiang Nanan's friends. Jiang Nanan heavily fell to the ground. The faces of the teachers also changed. In the previous matches, they'd stopped when it was appropriate. The other party didn't have any intention of injuring anyone. But now he had punched this student in the face. Could it be that he'd become angry from the humiliation caused by the other party's continuous use of soul skills? That's not right. Zhou Yi frowned. It should be Jiang Nanan's problem. His punch was somewhat profound. The other teachers were incomparably astonished and didn't understand what she meant. At this moment, 3 figures directly leapt out from below. You dare to injure her? An incomparably robust youth walked out from the group. He was about the same age as Bei Bei, but he was a little too old to be called a youth. He shouldn't be 18 years old, but his physique was stronger than many youths. There were a few people following behind him. The young man's body slowly flickered as a green tortoise martial soul emerged from his body. The 2 people behind him also, the soul 3 soul exalts over the level of 30, led by the Xuanwu tortoise, charged at Wang Feng furiously. It's Su Sanshi, Cage Tang's soul Jiang. However, what's going on with Senior Wang? Why would he hurt someone? Sister Tangya, who is this Su Sanshi? Hui Yuhao asked. He's also a genius student from the outer court. He has the bloodline of a divine beast, the Xuanwu turtle. Tang Sol explained. However, this Xuanwu turtle also has the bloodline of the divine beast, the black tortoise. These bloodlines should have slowly weakened over time, but due to the energy tide, the bloodline began to revert to its ancestral state. This was most obvious in Su Sanshi's generation. That's because his martial soul has already evolved into a true black tortoise. He's even stronger than Bei Bei. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he's the #1 person in the outer courtyard. Hui Yuhao was enlightened. Is Su Sanshi pursuing Jiang Nanan? Wang Dong asked curiously. Seeing the person he likes vomit blood, that's not it. Tang's soul hesitated. Jiang Nanan is Su Sanshi's younger sister. A year or 2 ago, Su Sanshi was indeed pursuing Jiang Nanan. After his pursuit failed, Su Sanshi recognized her as his younger sister. However, Jiang Nanan didn't acknowledge him. She also ignored him. There's such a thing? Wang Dong was incomparably astonished. Recognized her as his younger sister? Did he fall in love with someone else? Who knows? Nanan's family isn't rich, and there are too many people pursuing her. She doesn't like any of the talented, rich, or powerful students. Tang's soul shrugged. Nanan said that she doesn't want to think about these things. However, if there's fate, she'll treat it seriously. Su Sanshi isn't bad, but she doesn't feel anything for him. No matter how outstanding he is, it's useless. Girls are so strange. Hui Yuhao muttered. Boys are just as strange. Wang Dong laughed coldly. Hui Yuhao looked at him blankly. Aren't you a boy? However, seeing the blood that Jiang Nanan vomited, I reckon that there's another reason for this. Sanshi was too rash. Bei Bei continued to ponder. However, Su Sanshi should be taught a lesson this time. That was the truth. On the stage, Su Sanshi charged forward with the 2 of them. The black tortoise possessed his body, and a tortoise shield strangely appeared on his arm. It looked extremely extraordinary. As his body expanded, the muscles all over his body seemed to emit a steel-like luster. It was hard to imagine what kind of defensive power could allow his body to reach such a level. Stop! Jiang Nanan's voice was a little weak on the ground. She couldn't stop Su Sanshi. Wang Feng snorted coldly. He released a mysterious sound from his mouth. It was one of the chaotic 8 notes, the bright word. Over the past 10,000 years, Wang Feng had completed the chaotic 8 notes that he had comprehended. The last few notes were mixed with Wang Feng's understanding of the laws of life's origin. They were extremely powerful. 10,000 years was really too long. Wang Feng had made ample preparations for many things during those 10,000 years. The bright word. It could break all illusions. Under this ancient sound, even a mentally unstable person would calm down instantly. They would enter a state of calmness and emptiness. This syllable itself was not used to kill enemies. It was used to aid one's cultivation. The 8 notes of primal chaos was a unique skill that Wang Feng had comprehended from the Sea Witch's spiritual space. It was a unique skill of the Tao of sound. At the beginning, it was called the chaotic 8 notes because it was cool. It only had 1 note in the beginning. However, over the past 10,000 years, Wang Feng had also gradually perfected it. He had mixed in his understanding of the laws of life. It wasn't surprising that it was called the chaotic 8 notes. If he cultivated diligently, the chaotic 8 notes would definitely reach a higher level in the future. Wang Feng predicted that it wouldn't be inferior to the Shrouding Heaven World's 9 secrets technique. From control, attack, support, defense, cultivation, recovery, and so on, the chaotic 8 notes would encompass all aspects. End of chapter. Chapter 1098. It wasn't a good idea to keep learning from others. When he became strong enough, he had to create something that belonged to him. Otherwise, no matter how strong he was, he wouldn't be able to create something that belonged to him. He was more like a puppet built with countless golden fingers. The word Ming rang out. Instantly, the entire soul dueling arena fell into a state of silence. Su Sanshur and the other 2 stopped a few meters away from Wang Feng. Their eyes gradually became clear. As they thought, they remained silent for a few seconds before withdrawing their martial souls. Strange, incomparably strange. At this moment, the minds of everyone present seemed to have sunk into an incomparably silent state. Silence, incomparable silence. From afar, these people seemed to have lost their minds. However, their eyes were extremely clear. What a magical ability! Below, the woman who had just walked in was shocked. A look of disbelief flashed across her eyes. Even she was affected by the mysterious, ancient sound that came from his mouth. Her mind became incomparably peaceful. A single syllable from a Class 18 soul cultivator could even affect a soul sage like her. Furthermore, it wasn't a soul skill. There were no soul power undulations. Instead, it was a rather rare spiritual technique. If it was a spiritual skill, she couldn't have failed to detect his martial soul. Now that the prosperity of the continent had passed, it was now a period of stability. Many sects and political families had their own unique skills. It wasn't rare for them to be passed down from ancient times. However, she had never seen such a powerful effect. On the stage, Su Sanshur calmed down. His mind became extremely clear. He was extremely shocked. After a long silence, he spoke in a deep voice. "I'm sorry. I was too rash. I shouldn't have attacked without following the rules. But why did you hurt my sister?" "Your sister?" Wang Feng looked at Jiang Nanan in surprise. "Su Sanshur, what nonsense are you talking about?" Jiang Nanan recovered some strength and stood up with difficulty. She frowned and said, "What did I agree to be your sister?" There was no disgust or intimacy in her eyes. There was only calmness. "Nanan," Su Sanshur hurriedly said, "You stop talking." Jiang Nanan interrupted him. She looked at Wang Feng, and a strange look flashed across her eyes. "Senior, thank you for your help." Hearing this, everyone was stunned. Su Sanshur was also stunned. However, he wasn't stupid. He had been too concerned just now. When he saw the thick black bloodstains on the ground, he could vaguely guess what had happened. Wang Feng nodded slightly, but didn't say anything. Jiang Nanan did have some problems with her cultivation. However, this problem was very troublesome. She had absorbed the soul ring of the ferocious ape, a special 10,000-year soul beast. However, due to the savage ape's own cultivation, the soul rings of the savage ape were mixed with a powerful strand of inner strength. After a soul master absorbed it, this strand of inner strength would wreak havoc within the soul master's body and could only be suppressed with soul force. But with the passage of time, if this inner strength wasn't expelled, it would cause bruises in the body. If it was light, it would lower one's soul power, and if it was heavy, it would damage one's foundation. What was interesting was that as long as one was a soul emperor, they would be able to deal with it. Jiang Nanan didn't look for her teacher, because those experts needed to use their soul power and circulate it into every inch of Jiang Nanin's body. For a girl, it was a very tearful thing. However, Wang Feng thought that there were definitely female soul emperors in the school. Jiang Nanin also didn't look for these female teachers for help. Then there was only one possibility. Jiang Nanin didn't want the teachers to know the secret of her other martial soul. Wang Feng could only think of this possibility, because as long as a soul emperor circulated their soul power, they would be able to detect Jiang Nanin's second martial soul. This was very interesting. Logically speaking, having twin martial souls wasn't something to be ashamed of. On the contrary, for the current Shrek Academy, this was a very good thing. They would definitely focus on nurturing her. This girl is definitely hiding a lot of secrets. Wang Fengxin was puzzled. Jiang Nanin probably didn't think of it herself. The problem with her body would be solved with a single punch on the stage. With that punch, Wang Feng had scattered the inner strength that had been hidden in her body and the bruises that had formed in her body. It could be considered a very ingenious technique, because if it was a little heavier, this ball of inner strength would spread into her 5 viscera and 6 bowels, causing great harm to her. If it was a little lighter, it would add to the bruises in her body. Only by using just the right amount of strength could it be done so easily. Even a titled Dalu might not be able to deal with it as easily as Wang Feng. Jiang Nanin still wanted to say something. Wang Feng waved his hand and said, "You can leave." Seeing this, Jiang Nanin looked deeply at Wang Feng before walking off. Su Sancher couldn't help but ask, "What's going on?" "Nothing much. I suffered some bruises a few days ago. Just now, that senior's punch forced out the bruises in my body." Jiang Nanin explained simply. She didn't say anything else. This was more like an explanation to others. It wasn't just an explanation to Su Sancher. This was because she knew that if she didn't explain anything, it would be too suspicious. So that's how it is. Su Sancher came to a realization. He looked at the figure on the stage with some admiration. "Just now, I felt really strange. My body was filled with anger, but I somehow calmed down." Jiang Nanin's eyes flashed. "Little Yu Hao, that should be Boss's unique skill. It's an extremely powerful spiritual skill." Only the Sky Dream Ice Worm remained on Hui Yu Hao's body as he transmitted his voice to him. "Even with my cultivation and spiritual power, I can't be immune to it." The Sky Dream Ice Worm was truly shocked. Hui Yu Hao was immediately astonished. The Sky Dream Ice Worm was a true million-year soul beast, even though his combat strength wasn't very strong. Although his combat strength wasn't very strong, his spiritual power was very strong. Could it be that even the Sky Dream Ice Worm couldn't avoid Teacher's spiritual skill? I feel that this skill is beyond my understanding. The Sky Dream Ice Worm shook his head. He could feel it. That was because Wang Feng had mixed his comprehension of laws into the 8 chaotic sounds. Therefore, the Sky Dream Ice Worm couldn't avoid it. He felt that this skill was beyond his understanding. At the same time, on the stage, "Teachers, an hour has already passed." Wang Feng looked at them. "Shouldn't it be your turn next? Then come." Zhou Yi's serious face didn't show any contempt. This Wang Feng in front of her, Wang Feng nodded slightly and said, "All right, I won't fight next." In the soul domain, Long Xie was furious. "Boss, do you want it to be beaten up? You're not going to fight? Are you going to let me fight alone? Are you going to let a 1,000-year crag dragon face a soul emperor?" "Boss, I want to protest." "Your protest is invalid. You can beat him." End of chapter. Chapter 1099. Zhou Yi was confused when she heard Wang Feng's words. "If you're not going to do anything, what are you going to do?" Everyone was curious too. Jiang Nanin, who had just walked down, immediately turned her attention back to the stage. This mysterious young man, who was pretending to be the 9-opening ancestor, seemed even more mysterious now. At this moment, "You might not have heard my introduction," Wang Feng said slowly. "I'm a soul charger, not a soul master. Come out, Long Xie." As he finished speaking, his purple soul ring shone once again. A ray of yellow light shot out from his soul ring. This ray of light landed on the ground and turned into a soul beast. A true 1,000-year soul beast. A crag dragon. As a 1,000-year soul beast, Long Xie's body was even bigger than Wang Feng's. It was extremely strong. Its skin was like a layer of rock, and it looked like it was wearing a layer of rock armor. Its round belly had undergone a long period of training and evolution, and it was very oppressive now. The metal hair on its head was even brighter, and the canine teeth at the corner of its mouth had turned into a pair of fangs that were half a meter long. They shone with a cold light. It was almost 2 meters tall, and there were 2 small lumps on its back. This gave Long Xie a unique charm. A powerful aura spread out from Long Xie's body in all directions. At that instant, the entire soul-dueling area was stunned. Therefore, at this moment, the minds of the onlookers went blank for a moment. Only Tanya and Bei Bei looked on with complicated expressions. Elder Wang still had to take this step. The crag dragon in front of them had really become a 1,000-year soul beast. It was hard to imagine that this crag dragon was only a 100-year crag dragon 10 days ago. How long had it been? Was a soul charger so strong? This was against the balance of soul beast cultivation, wasn't it? Wasn't it against the rules? Strictly speaking, it was against the rules. Normal soul beasts couldn't improve so quickly. For example, Yu Hao's silver pattern silkworm had obtained a trace of the Sky Dream ice worm's origin power, but it was only a 100-year soul beast. It was a pity that Long Xie wasn't as strong. This was because that drop of essence blood was too useful. Tanya and Bei Bei were astonished by his cultivation speed, which defied common sense. However, at this moment, what shocked everyone even more was Soul Beast. What was going on? How could a soul beast suddenly appear in the soul dueling arena? The teachers were also completely dumbfounded. Even the woman who had walked out of the sea god's pavilion to observe the situation was stunned. I'm a soul renderer. Wang Feng looked around at everyone. We'll focus on nurturing soul beasts and cultivating ourselves. His name is Long Xie, my first soul-bonded beast, a 1,000-year-old crag dragon. At this moment, the 3 words soul charmer really imprinted in everyone's mind. Soul beasts. How can soul beasts team up with humans to fight? A teacher murmured. Dumbfounded. That was the only thought in their minds. He was so confused that he didn't know how to deal with it. It was as if his concept of cultivation had received a huge blow. Even the soul emperors couldn't come back to their senses for a while. Why not? Wang Feng said calmly. According to the history of the continent, didn't my successor, Wang Feng, have 8 companions in the extreme north? That's because I wanted him to accept my legacy as a soul contractor. Otherwise, there should be no one in the entire continent who doesn't know about the soul contractor profession. When the teachers heard this, they were stunned. Thinking about it, it made sense. Soul charmer. Zhou muttered a few words and forced herself to come back to her senses. She looked at the crag dragon in the distant arena. Unlike ordinary crag dragons, this 1,000-year-old crag dragon's eyes were bright and full of expression, flickering with the light of high intelligence. Its body, which didn't seem very big, was filled with explosive strength. It definitely couldn't be recognized by a 1,000-year-old soul beast. Human, stop wasting time. If you want to fight, then fight. I still need to go back and rest after this. At this moment, the crag dragon spoke in human language and let out an impatient voice. A 1,000-year-old soul beast that spoke in human language? What the F***CK is this? Countless people were dumbfounded as they watched. This is a soul charmer? Below the arena, Wang Dong grabbed Hui Yuhao's shoulder. There was only shock, curiosity, and excitement in his eyes. Hui Yuhao slapped Wang Dong's hand away, but didn't answer. Wang Dong wasn't an exception. Everyone was shocked, curious, and excited. Some of the weaker students were even a little afraid. A 1,000-year-old soul beast. How can it speak? This is unbelievable. Zhou was stunned for a moment before she took a deep breath. She felt as if her cultivation was being destroyed and collapsing. This wasn't a good feeling. However, this wasn't enough. Is this what you meant when you said that you won't fight? Zhou looked at Wang Feng. That's right. Don't worry. Wang Feng patted Long Xie's back. The corner of Long Xie's mouth twitched. He was in a period of rapid growth. In addition to his special physique, he needed to be beaten. The older he was, the more he would improve, and the stronger he would be. Since this is the case, I won't hold back. Zhou Yi took a deep breath. I don't care what a soul charmer is, but I don't believe that a 1,000-year-old soul beast can overturn the heavens. After she finished speaking, Zhou Yi charged towards Long Xie. He definitely couldn't overturn the heavens for the time being. To a soul emperor, a 1,000-year-old soul beast was like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. Not to mention a 1,000-year-old soul beast. Even a soul emperor could kill an ordinary 10,000-year-old soul beast. Zhou Yi's soul rings lit up as she charged towards Long Xie. Although she didn't have a beast martial soul, she was very fast. Evidently, she had been using various methods to strengthen herself. Fifth soul skill, Darksteel Cold Moon Slash. Before she could get close to Long Xie, she leapt into the air. The Darksteel ferrule in her hand became several times bigger. Following this, her body bent like a full moon. The Darksteel ferrule in her hand formed a U shape under the effect of her soul power. After that, she slashed a bright silver blade light towards Long Xie. It carried an aura that could tear everything apart. Just as it was about to land in Long Xie's mouth, Long Xie opened his mouth. It directly swallowed the bright silver blade light. Zhou Yi was stunned. He's fine? While she was in a daze, Long Xie spat out a sticky yellow ball of light. This sticky liquid solidified when it came into contact with something. Zhou Yi was caught off guard. She was hit by several streaks of sticky liquid and turned into a rock. Her speed was greatly reduced. Fortunately, Zhou Yi was able to avoid the yellow ball of light. Take my ferocious dragon tail whip. Long Xie shouted and charged at Zhou Yi, who was slowing down. Zhou Yi focused her attention on Long Xie's tail when she heard this. She was a little confused. This stony dragon's tail wasn't very long. However, in the next moment, huge fists landed on Zhou Yi's body like raindrops. Are you using the ferocious dragon tail whip? Why are you using fists again? Are you trying to trick me? Zhou Yi broke out in cold sweat. Isn't this stony dragon a little too intelligent? This doesn't make sense. Stony crazed demon fist. Fists after fists landed on Zhou Yi's body like raindrops. Bang, bang, bang. Her opponent was too fast. Zhou Yi wasn't good at defense. She was careless and took 2 heavy punches. Suddenly, he was sent flying. Her face turned pale. What powerful strength! This Stoneclaw beast is far superior to most soul beasts of its level in every aspect. Unbelievable. Take my Darksteel Cold Moon Slash. At this moment, Long Xie opened his mouth and spat out 2 silver moon blades toward Zhou Yi. Zhou Yi's expression changed. This soul beast didn't neutralize her attack. Instead, it was storing it. In the blink of an eye, an ice-cold beam of moonlight came from afar and shattered the 2 Darksteel Cold Moon Slashes. Then a cold voice rang out. Teacher Zhou, you can't beat him. Let me try. Let me see what this soul charmer's ability is. P.S. Cough cough, I'm a little late. End of chapter. Chapter 1100. Long Xie couldn't beat Zhou Yi. However, Zhou Yi knew too little about Long Xie and couldn't make an accurate judgment. To put it simply, Zhou Yi still believed that the evil dragon was only a 1,000-year soul beast. He only had the concept of soul contract master and soul contract beast in his mind. He didn't know how powerful Long Xie was. Intelligence. Soul beasts with intelligence and soul beasts without intelligence were on 2 different levels of fighting strength. Long Xie couldn't compare to Zhou Yi, who was a soul emperor. However, Long Xie had lived for countless years. Even if he spent most of his time cultivating, he still had a lot of fighting experience. He was cunning. When Wang Feng first met him, he was trapped by Long Xie. It wasn't hard to imagine how difficult it was to deal with him. Long Xie liked to show off, but he was strong. Just now, he had found a small opportunity to expand his advantage and prevent himself from being beaten up. At this moment, a cold voice sounded. Zhou Yi knew who it was. The cold moonlight broke through Long Xie's Darksteel Cold Moon Slash. There was a slight silence in the air. A moonlight flashed, and a figure appeared on the soul dueling stage. A woman in white clothes appeared on the stage. She looked cold and otherworldly, like a fairy from the moon palace. She was different from the previous students. This girl looked like she was in her early 20s. Whether it was her appearance or her body, she was much more mature. She wore a badge on her chest. It was bluish gold, and there were a few layers of ripples on it. Her identity was obvious. She was a student of the Sea God's Pavilion. Shrek was so big, and there were thousands of students. However, there were only 100 disciples in the Sea God's Pavilion. It could be said that they were all true geniuses. This girl was a genius among geniuses. This was because the 7 soul rings that shone from her body were incomparably eye-piercing. 2 were purple, 4 were black, and her last soul ring was black with a tinge of red. Her soul ring was at least 80,000 years old. For a moment, everyone looked at the person in front of them in a daze. Many students from the outer courtyard didn't recognize her. Only a few seniors who were about to join the Sea God's Pavilion knew who she was. Lishuan, why are you here? Zhou stared at this woman in astonishment. She stood up, and a trace of astonishment flashed through her eyes. The Sea God's Pavilion? The woman nodded slightly. Then, she looked at the man in front of her. Although she had watched him for a while, her heart still skipped a beat when she saw him on the stage. Soul Renderer. What the hell is this? What did it symbolize? A miraculous and powerful 1,000-year soul beast that could even suppress a soul emperor. The most frightening thing was that the other party had yet to truly make a move. From the start until now, this person had not unleashed his martial spirit. That mysterious spiritual ultimate skill shocked her even more. Even though the elders of the Sea God's Pavilion didn't allow her to make a move and were only observing, she still wanted to give a try. Where did this soul renderer come from? My name is Zhang Lishuan. The woman looked at Wang Feng and said calmly, he's from the Sea God's Pavilion, a rank 72 battle soul sage with a moon martial soul. Please advise me. As soon as he finished speaking, the soul battle area instantly fell silent. Rank 72, soul sage? So young? He looked to be in his early 20s. However, when they heard about the Sea God's Pavilion, everyone came to a realization. So she was a genius from the inner courtyard. She's the eldest senior sister of the Sea God's Pavilion, the strongest person in the inner courtyard. Su Sanshur smacked his lips. I didn't expect such a person to be here. The elders of the Sea God's Pavilion should have noticed this mysterious soul renderer since yesterday. As the strongest person in the outer courtyard, he was about to enter his 6th year. It was only a matter of time before he entered the inner courtyard. He wasn't the only one. Jiang Nanan had also heard of him, but she was relatively unfamiliar with him. As for the new students, they were even more clueless. This, Senior Wang, can he beat him? Even though Tanya had heard of him, it was her first time seeing him. This is a soul sage. Senior Wang is only rank 18. Isn't the difference a little too big? It wasn't rare for one to challenge someone of a higher rank. However, no one knew where this was going. Only a small part of Senior Wang's abilities originate from his soul power. Bei said, most of it originates from other places. For example, he's very strong. I suspect that his soul power has been sealed. He might not be a rank 10 soul master. Otherwise, his body wouldn't be so strong. You have to know that even if he consumes those treasures, his soul power will increase as his body becomes stronger. There shouldn't be such a huge difference. Bei, what you said makes sense. Tanya was stunned. She nodded. Otherwise, it's impossible for him to be able to surpass so many ranks. Furthermore, Senior Wang's soul power is rising too quickly. He's only been 1 rank in the past few days. If his soul power has been sealed, it's normal for him to be unsealed bit by bit as the seal weakens. Bei continued. Otherwise, it's too exaggerated. In fact, Bei had even guessed a few things. However, most people were immersed in the battle. They didn't have the mood to think about anything else. However, Bei could only guess half of it. He couldn't have guessed that Wang Feng was using an avatar. It wasn't his soul power that was sealed either. It was pure strength. At this moment, everyone's attention was focused on the two of them. On the stage, Wang Feng smiled faintly as he looked at the otherworldly woman in front of him. Can I enter the sea god's pavilion if I defeat you? Zhang Lishuan shook her head and said, If you defeat me, you will indeed have the right to enter the sea god's pavilion. However, the pavilion master and the elders will decide whether you can enter. She was the strongest person in the inner courtyard. Her abilities and talents were top-notch. With her cultivation speed, she would become a soul Douluo in the next few years. She would become a soul Douluo under the age of 30. Logically speaking, 10,000 years ago, Wang Feng thought about it. Other than Tang San and himself, there wasn't anyone else in the entire continent who could do that. Then what are we waiting for? Long Xie go! Wang Feng shouted loudly. Long Xie was speechless. Roar! Long Xie roared fiercely. At this moment, a huge dragon's aura was released from his body. It covered more than half of the soul dueling arena. Countless soul cultivators were startled by this roar, and their minds trembled. Zhang Lishuan was very calm. She wasn't affected at all. A full moon appeared behind her. The silver moonlight shone on her body. It made her look like a fairy who had descended from the moon palace into the mortal world. It was Wang Feng's first time seeing a moon as a martial soul. Disregarding everything else, the attractiveness of this martial soul was indeed top-notch. As her 7 soul rings flashed, the full moon rose into the sky. Under the clear moonlight, more than half of Long Xie's dragon's aura was dispelled. Following this, Zhang Lishuan tapped her feet lightly. Her entire body seemed to disappear in this bright moonlight. Her body was covered by this layer of moonlight, and she fused with the full moon in the sky. End of chapter. Chapter 1101. Boss, I can't sense her. She's quite powerful. I might not be able to defeat her. Long Xie's heart skipped a beat. Zhang Lishuan's martial soul was a tool soul, and rank 70 was another milestone. Her body was already very strong, and her moon martial soul didn't seem to have any elements. However, it could be used for both long-range and close combat. The moonlight it gave off could even conceal its aura. From a warrior's point of view, Zhang Lishuan was an agile attacker. She didn't have any shortcomings. However, Wang Feng found a little weird. From his point of view, the moon was essentially a planet. Zhang Lishuan's martial soul should only be in the shape of a full moon. It wasn't a true moon martial soul. Otherwise, how could she have a planet as her martial soul? How could that be? At this point, Wang Feng suddenly realized something. Could it be that someone's martial spirit was a planet? If it was really a planet, how crazy would that be? Could the Douluo continent be someone else's planet? Could the godly realm be another small world with twin martial souls? Thinking of this, Wang Feng's eyes flashed. He got rid of these thoughts and sent a voice transmission. He transmitted his voice to his 7 o'clock. Long Xie couldn't sense it. However, he could sense it. Long Xie's body was too strong. Although his soul was very strong, his body could only take a portion of it. In other words, Long Xie could only use a small portion of his spiritual power. Only when his body gradually became stronger would he be able to use more and more of them. Otherwise, overusing his mental power would cause irreparable damage to his body. However, Wang Feng's body was very strong. He had copied it from his original body. His spiritual power wasn't limited. With Wang Feng's reminder, Long Xie subconsciously turned his body to the side and exposed his back to the 7 o'clock direction. At the same time, he swung his short tail in the 7 o'clock direction. In that instant crack, the short tail was very strong. It swung in mid-air, and it sounded like thunder. A silhouette suddenly appeared. It was Zhang Lishuan. She seemed a little surprised that the 1,000-year stone dragon could still sense her attack. However, she reacted quickly. When the tail swung towards her, a beam of light suddenly gathered in her hand, and she grabbed Long Xie's tail. Long Xie felt a huge suction force from his tail. Following this, he felt as if his entire body was about to be pulled up. Super strength. Don't worry. She wants to throw you out. The moment she throws you out, use the flying rock spiral, just like how I threw you out last time. Then, use her strength to spin back and attack. Wang Feng immediately transmitted his voice. No problem, Long Xie quickly replied. As a spectator, Boss had a clear view of the situation. Although Long Xie had been fighting alone for most of the battles, Long Xie had been fighting alone. However, if Wang Feng were to help him, Long Xie would be able to unleash more than 100% of his strength. Sure enough, he was right. The moonlight in Zhang Lishuan's hand had a strong suction force, and she grabbed Long Xie's tail. He tapped the ground with the tip of his foot, spun, and threw Long Xie away. It was extremely fast. If it were any other soul beast, they would have been dizzy from the fall. However, Long Xie's body suddenly began to spin in the air. Flying rock spiral. The giant spinning top created gusts of wind. Long Xie's body was already strong enough, so his power was naturally stronger. The top spun half around in the air, and it even borrowed the force from Zhang Lishuan's toss to fly back. A strange look flashed across Zhang Lishuan's eyes. She had been seen through. Fourth soul skill, moon dance. Zhang Lishuan's fourth soul skill shone. The full moon in the sky suddenly descended and started to spin rapidly. Streaks of force raged on the soul dueling stage. Every blast of energy that landed on the soul battle stage left a clear dent in it. It was obvious how powerful it was. The full moon seemed to dance in the air as it spun. At the same time, it crashed into Long Xie, who was spinning like a top. Boom! In that instant, it was as if two high-speed gears had collided with each other and were stuck for a moment. Long Xie's body was revealed, and he was sent flying by this tremendous force. The tough rock armor on his body was instantly torn apart. His skin was also torn open. Roar! Long Xie let out a pained roar. On the other side, the full moon didn't change at all. It was still shining brightly. Master Long is angry. Long Xie's eyes were filled with ferocity. He didn't care about his injuries as he opened his mouth and spat out a dirt yellow light wave. This was Long Xie's third soul skill, Crag Dragon Soul Devouring Wave. Apart from being able to devour his enemy's energy attacks, he could also release a dirt yellow light wave to attack his enemy. Fifth soul skill, Dawning Moon Cold Light. Zhang Lishuan said plainly. Her fifth soul ring shone. In the blink of an eye, the full moon emitted an intense light. The entire soul dueling arena was blinded by the light. Amidst the bright light, a frightening silver beam shot towards the full moon. It clashed with the dirt yellow light wave that Long Xie had spat out. Their energies were neutralized as they clashed. However, the silver beam broke through Long Xie's soul skill after a few seconds. It hit Long Xie directly. The huge difference in their abilities caused Long Xie to be beaten up again. Boss, I can't beat her. I want to return to the soul domain, Long Xie said. Aren't you too scared? Hang in there a little longer. Your injuries are nothing. You haven't even unleashed your potential yet, Wang Feng reminded him. However, Zhang Lishuan was indeed very strong. It was normal for Long Xie, who was only 1,000 years old, to lose. Boss, you should attack too. Long Xie landed on the soul dueling arena from midair. He seemed to be drunk as he stumbled 2 steps. Zhang Lishuan watched quietly. 1,000-year stony dragon with an ordinary bloodline was able to withstand 2 of her powerful attacks and still remain standing. It was very rare. Everyone calmed down when they saw this scene. It would be too embarrassing if this eldest senior sister of the inner courtyard couldn't even deal with a stony dragon. I was too careless just now, Zhou Yi sighed and said. This stony dragon shouldn't be able to beat me, but its intelligence is unparalleled. It's obvious that it's being suppressed by Lishuan. Lishuan used her strength to suppress it, and she didn't reason with it. If I hadn't been hit by that attack, I would have lost to this soul beast. Furthermore, it's obvious that Wang Feng can help the stony dragon. When Lishuan first attacked, he saw through her attack. The stony dragon was able to dodge in time. That's why Lishuan understood that she couldn't give it any chance. Even if she fought it head-on, the stony dragon would still lose. That's because if she fought it head-on, her opponent wouldn't have any chance to dodge. It's useless even if he saw through it. Unless what? Another teacher asked. Unless he attacks too. Zhou, he looked at Wang Feng. In a chapter 1102. The teachers were momentarily stunned. Only then did they realize that Wang Feng hadn't done anything since he attacked the crag dragon. At this moment, Zhang Lishuan's gaze landed on Wang Feng. She lifted her head slightly and asked, "Is this a soul contractor?" "Of course not." Wang Feng smiled and said, "A soul contractor is only called a soul contractor when a soul-contracted beast fights alongside a human." "Then why didn't you do anything just now?" Zhang Lishuan asked. "It needs to be beaten up a few times in battle to develop its potential. It can also stabilize its soul power." Wang Feng said, "The more it's beaten up, the more experience it will accumulate, and the faster its cultivation will be." Zhang Lishuan was speechless. She was a little depressed. Zhang Lishuan glanced at Wang Feng. Her eyes shone with a faint silver light. "Long Xie!" Wang Feng shouted, and an ancient voice could be heard. Long Xie shook his head violently, and his eyes became clear. Long Xie's consciousness was jolted awake when he heard the word Ming. Zhang Lishuan's 2 moves had severely injured his body. However, as long as he persevered, he would be able to improve. Zhang Lishuan focused her gaze. It was that ancient voice again. It helped the soul beast that was supposed to be defeated and stimulated his will. She knew that this soul contractor's true abilities would be revealed in the upcoming battle. In the next moment, Wang Feng's eyes shone brightly. Black and gold intertwined to form 2 ancient beams of light that shot out from the chaos. 14 pairs of black and gold light wings appeared behind Wang Feng's back. An ancient and majestic aura rose from Wang Feng's body. Streaks of flowing light surrounded Wang Feng, making him look like a heavenly god. Wang Feng's body grew slightly taller from 1.8 meters to 2 meters. His tall and perfect body brought about unparalleled pressure, suffocation. In that instant, after being possessed by the angel of light and dark, Wang Feng's charisma increased by another level. He looked like a god, and his eyes were divided into 2 colors. His hair was as black as ink, and his chaotic and ancient aura made him seem mysterious. He was extremely handsome. Not only was he handsome, but his aura was also extremely imposing. It was as if he wasn't a human, but a true god. Even though it was their second time seeing him, Tanya and Bei Bei were deeply shocked. They were even more shocked than when they saw Wang Dong's radiant butterfly goddess. Angel Martial Soul, the mysterious Angel Martial Soul. "He's too handsome." Xiao Xiao watched excitedly from below. His eyes were filled with the pursuit and desire for beauty. The killing power of this level of beauty and appearance was simply too great. Even Zhang Lishuan's heartbeat quickened for a few seconds, let alone these underage students. It wasn't because of the other party's appearance. Instead, it was his aura. The aura emitted by his opponent's martial soul was too shocking. What kind of martial soul is this? Angel martial spirit? Even the angel martial spirit is not like this. When the teachers behind Zhou Yi saw this, they couldn't help but become somewhat lost in thought. As a teacher, he had a deep understanding of martial souls. Angel martial spirits were rare, but they had appeared before. In the past few thousand years, a few angel martial spirits had appeared. However, none of them could compare to the angel martial soul in front of him. That kind of aura, not to mention the angel martial spirit. Among all the martial souls they had seen, none of them could compare to this one. What a handsome martial soul, Wang Dong muttered. He had originally thought that his radiant butterfly goddess was the most beautiful martial soul on the continent. However, Wang Feng's martial soul was beyond his imagination. It wasn't just his charm. Just his aura alone had already surpassed that of a top-tier beast soul. Such a martial soul seemed to have broken away from the mark of a beast soul. At this moment, "Go!" Wang Feng's thoughts moved, and he stared at Long Xie. Following this, everyone witnessed what a soul contract master was. When Wang Feng's martial soul was possessed, A radiant look flashed across Zhang Lishuan's eyes. Her seventh soul ring lit up. Evidently, she didn't want to give Wang Feng any chance. In other words, she had already predicted that Wang Feng would make a move. Her fight with Long Xie was just a warm-up. She didn't believe that a rank 18 soul master could defeat her. The reason was very simple. The difference in soul power was too great. No matter how they competed, there was no other outcome with such a huge difference in soul power. Her seventh soul ring represented her martial soul true body. Under the effects of her martial soul true body, her opponent couldn't resist at all. Zhang Lishuan directly used such a powerful move. She didn't want to give her opponent any chance. In that instant, Zhang Lishuan disappeared, and the full moon suddenly became bigger. Blinding moonlight filled the entire soul dueling arena. It was as if the soul dueling arena had become a domain of moonlight. Nothing could hide from it. Faintly, one could see a tiny figure in the full moon. She was like a fairy from the moon palace. Interesting. Wang Feng was astonished as he looked at her martial soul true body. This martial soul possession didn't seem like she had turned into a full moon. It seemed like she had entered her martial soul. Could it be that this martial soul also possesses the rare spatial attribute? Wang Feng couldn't help but think. Space-type martial souls were as rare as Hua Yuhao's spiritual-type spirit eyes. Wang Feng didn't hesitate. The 14 wings behind his back flapped slightly. His entire body was like a streak of black and gold flowing light as he attacked the huge moon. Chapter 11:03. However, at this moment, 6 soul skill, waning waxing moons. A black soul ring flashed above the huge moon. Following this, everyone saw the huge moon turn from a full moon to a crescent moon, as if it was experiencing a lunar eclipse. Finally, it became a waning moon. There was only a slight curvature. This weird change made Wang Feng furrow his brow. This soul skill, is it changing its shape? In the next moment, Long Xie's attack was aimed at the center of the full moon. However, as the full moon turned into a waning moon, it lost its target. At the same time, whoosh, as Long Xie pierced through the waning moon suddenly closed. It was like a pair of pliers that fixed the spinning gears in place. It broke Long Xie's flying rock spiral. What a weird move. Wang Feng immediately dashed forward. When Long Xie was thrown down, he grabbed Long Xie's tail. Waning waxing moons referred to the full moon of his martial soul true body. He could use his martial soul true body's mentality to defend, attack, or even dodge an enemy's attack. From a full moon to a waning moon, and from a waning moon to a full moon. His enemy couldn't guard against it. It was an interesting soul skill. Wang Feng squinted his eyes. This soul skill wasn't as simple as he thought it would be. Just as Wang Feng expected, the moon shone in mid-air in the next moment. Then, it turned into a waning moon. It was like a scythe, and it exuded a terrifying light. Waning moon dimensional slash. Silver light tore through the void. It was so quick that no one could react to it. It seemed to have broken through the restraints of space. This powerful single-target attack contained spatial elements. It was impossible to defend against it. If Wang Feng threw Long Xie down, he could still dodge it. However, he didn't want to do so. The 10-meter-long crescent arc sealed the space and fell on Wang Feng's body. Wang Feng's eyes flashed. His soul power surged, and 7 light projections that were 2 meters long enveloped him and Long Xie. Black and gold intertwined. They seemed to form a barrier at this moment. When a silver waning moon landed on it, waves of intense energy undulations were unleashed. Several figures of light disappeared in an instant. Although the figures of light formed from soul power possessed a certain degree of defensive ability, the difference in soul power between them and Wang Feng was too great. They couldn't resist it. Wang Feng's expression changed slightly. Zhang Lishuan's strength had exceeded his expectations. However, it did not matter. Wang Feng did not intend to block it directly. He only wanted to block a portion of its power. In this moment of crisis, Wang Feng lifted Long Xie and held him like a pillar. Open your mouth and swallow this attack. Long Xia opened his mouth subconsciously. The huge dragon's mouth contained a ball of earthy yellow light as it swallowed the crescent into its stomach. I've calculated that after the enemy's crescent arc passes through the defense of my 14 pairs of light shadows, its power will be greatly reduced. You'll be able to devour it just right. Wang Feng said. Zhang Lishuan didn't go for the kill, so she was holding back. He just wanted to make the other party lose the ability to fight. I'll attack, and you support me. Try your best to lock down her position. Wang Feng whispered. Long Xia nodded, but didn't say anything. He was currently devouring the crescent arc in his mouth. Following this, Wang Feng attacked Zhang Lishuan's martial soul true body. At the same time, Long Xia spat out the crescent moon from his mouth. At the same time, the yellow light shot towards Zhang Lishuan again. However, under the waxing moon, and waning moon, he could change his form and dodge the attacks, even if they were just inches away from Zhang Lishuan. In his martial soul true body state, this soul skill was extremely powerful. At the same time, he sensed Wang Feng's attack. While dodging Long Xia's attacks, the full moon shone brightly. Soul skill, Moonfall Stars. 3 soul rings lit up on full moon's body. Evidently, this was a rare soul skill combo. The full moon rose into the sky, and in an instant, countless spots of light appeared in the sky. Densely packed, whoosh, whoosh, under the vibrations of the full moon. These light spots tore through space and smashed towards Wang Feng as if they were exposed. As the specks of light fell, they continued to grow in size, just like a falling star. This kind of enlargement was impossible to guard against. Moreover, its speed wasn't any slower than the previous move. Zhang Lishuan's attack was frighteningly fast, as her moon martial soul contained spatial elements. In addition, her soul skill combo covered a large area, and it was an indiscriminate attack. Emptiness. Wang Feng's eyes flashed, and he unleashed his spiritual power. The silver light spots that contained terrifying power seemed to be 10 times larger in his eyes. Long Xia, look at my feet. Open your mouth. Look. Wang Feng moved. At this moment, he seemed to have turned into a streak of light. Wang Feng channeled his soul power to his feet and palms. In his emptiness state, his speed and reaction were extremely fast. These star-like light spots brushed past Wang Feng's body. He could even see the explosive energy contained within these light spots. Wang Feng tapped his finger lightly. As his palm contained soul power, he was able to touch these light spots. These light spots were flicked away by Wang Feng. They accurately landed in Long Xia's mouth. Following this, as Wang Feng dodged, he sent these light spots into Long Xia's mouth. As he was in his emptiness state, he was extremely fast, and everything around him seemed to be still. It seemed like a long time, but only a second had passed. In the eyes of others, they could only see a stream of light shuttling through the falling stars in the blink of an eye. Following this, countless light spots accurately landed in Long Xia's mouth. It was a shocking scene. When Long Xia couldn't take it anymore, Wang Feng suddenly used his soul power to explode the remaining light spots in midair. Boom, boom, boom. At the first moment, the entire sky exploded with bursts of light mist. It blocked everyone's vision. The full moon stood quietly in midair, and a streak of light flashed across it from time to time. Silence. After the explosion, it was extremely quiet. In the next moment, whoosh, a figure leapt out from the light fog and punched towards the full moon. The figure in the full moon seemed to be a little surprised. How did the other party dodge so many explosions? However, when she sensed Wang Feng's injuries, she knew that he was injured too. He had forced his way through. He was at the end of his rope. For her, she could still maintain her martial soul true body for a long time. Under the waxing and waning moon, Wang Feng's punch missed. The full moon could turn into a waning moon from any angle, and it could even turn into an arc. In this state, she was able to dodge most of the attacks in time. Wang Feng's punch carried a strong gust of wind, but it still didn't hit its target. However, Wang Feng's lips curled into a smile. End of chapter. Chapter 1104. Boom! In the next moment, an intense streak of silver light appeared behind Wang Feng. It landed on the crescent moon. It was the attack that Long Xie had been preparing after devouring the moonfall star. From the moment Wang Feng appeared, it shot towards the sky. Wang Feng's attack was just a feint. Long Xie's attack was the real attack. Although you can dodge many attacks with waxing moons, there's a flaw. When your martial soul, true body, changes its form, its defensive strength will decrease. Wang Feng squinted. He had to take this attack head-on. Furthermore, the strength of this attack wasn't Long Xie's own strength. It was Zhang Lishuan's soul skill. After Long Xie devoured the specks of light, he fused them together and unleashed an explosion that was stronger than a single speck of light. It directly hit Zhang Lishuan's martial soul, true body. In that instant, Zhang Lishuan's martial soul, true body disappeared. Zhang Lishuan fell to the ground from midair. There was blood at the corner of her mouth. Her face was as white as snow. The red at the corner of her mouth was a little shocking. Silence. It was very quiet. Everyone was stunned as they watched this scene. They didn't know what to say. Did she lose? Or did she win? At this moment, they were all waiting for the result. This was because the battle that followed was very cool and shocking. However, not many people understood what was going on. They could only see Zhang Lishuan being hit. Only a few teachers understood the details of the battle. Zhang Lishuan looked at Wang Feng with a pale face. She said calmly, "I lost," before she could finish. Wang Feng waved his hand and interrupted her. "Let's call a draw. Strictly speaking, you didn't use your full strength." After hearing this, Zhang Lishuan watched silently. However, she didn't reply. There was only deep shock in her eyes. She clearly knew that she had lost just now. Furthermore, she had lost because of the cooperation between her opponent and his soul beast. Their tacit and smooth cooperation, as well as their meticulous battle tactics, as well as the mysterious movement technique that she didn't know how to dodge her attack. In the end, he still used his soul skill to defeat her. She had been very vigilant from the beginning to the end. However, she was still defeated by her opponent's cooperation with his soul beast. If her opponent was at rank 70, his soul beast would have had 10,000 years of cultivation. She didn't even have a chance of winning. She would have been crushed. That kind of huge gap would be like a natural moat. The most frightening thing was that he was able to see through the weakness of her waning waxing moons in such a short period of time. That's right, it was defense. This was a special battle state. It had extremely high dodging ability, and, at the same time, it also had a powerful attack. It had a decent amplification effect. It could only be unleashed perfectly in his martial soul true body form. The only drawback was that the defensive power of his martial soul true body would be greatly reduced if he changed his martial soul true body's form, such as a crescent moon. Once struck, even a rank 40 soul master would be able to injure him. However, in this state, even a rank 70 soul master wouldn't be able to hurt her, let alone a rank 40 soul master. Therefore, this weakness wasn't considered a weakness when facing soul masters of a lower rank than her. But now he was hurt. This soul skill of yours should have absorbed the soul ring of the illusory demon, right? Wang Feng looked at Zhang Lishuan and said, "The illusory demon is a rare soul beast that can change its form. After absorbing the soul ring of such a soul beast, your martial soul gained part of its abilities. You can easily change the form of your martial soul. The waning moon, waxing moons, the name of your soul skill is very suitable." Wang Feng thought for a moment and said, "You probably didn't absorb the soul ring of the illusory demon correctly. Otherwise, your defensive power wouldn't have been reduced after you change your form. This should be a perfect soul skill. When you absorbed the soul ring of the illusory demon, did it come?" His voice was very soft towards the end. It was so soft that it couldn't be heard. Only Zhang Lishuan could hear it. When a girl absorbs the soul ring of an illusory demon, her mind will be in chaos. After forcefully absorbing it, there will be a flaw in her soul skill. Wang Feng shook his head. Zhang Lishuan opened her mouth slightly and looked at Wang Feng. Her face was still a little red. However, her eyes were filled with astonishment. This was because he was right? How could he analyze so much with just one soul skill? He was even able to analyze the situation when she absorbed the soul ring to the best of his abilities. If it were the soul rings of other soul beasts, it wouldn't be enough. However, the illusory demon is very special. You probably only knew about it after it happened. However, it was already too late. Wang Feng pondered. With his understanding of soul beasts and the ancient soul beast Long Xie, although 10,000 years had passed, there were still many different types of soul beasts. There might be many mutations and new species, such as the evil soul beasts. However, Wang Feng still knew the majority of it clearly. This was especially so for some rare soul beasts. Similar to the mirror image beast that Oscar absorbed, the illusory demon was also a very special and magical soul beast. There were probably only a few of them in the entire continent. This was why very few people knew about the illusory demon. This information was given to him by Long Xie 10,000 years ago. Zhang Lishuan opened her mouth and wanted to say something. However, she stopped herself in the end. You want to ask if there's a solution? Wang Feng smiled. If this was in the past, there might not be a solution. Soul skills were fixed. Such a flaw couldn't be changed normally. This was mainly because the soul ring of the illusory demon had to be absorbed in the blazing sun sky. This was because the illusory demon contained a special type of illusory demon chi. When a woman was on her period, the yin energy in her body was extremely heavy. After absorbing the illusory demon chi in her soul ring, the yin energy in her body was extremely heavy. After absorbing the illusory demon chi, the soul master's soul skill would be flawed. This illusory demon chi would be stored in the soul ring and wouldn't dissipate easily. It wouldn't affect the soul master's cultivation, but would only create flaws. It was irreversible, and there was no way to solve it. If his original body was around, it would be very easy. He could use the white lotus to purify it or the golden lotus to recover it. If not, there was no solution. Otherwise, with the strength of the Shrek Academy and the elders of the Sea God's Pavilion, how could they solve it? Zhang Lishuan nodded slightly, but sighed in her heart. It was as if the other party was omniscient. He was able to see through her flaws in just a single battle. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that he was an expert. However, if this was in the past, I might not have a solution. However, I do have a solution now. Wang Feng smiled as he spoke. Boss, what solution do you have? The illusory demon, Qi, can't be absorbed. Once it's absorbed, something will happen to her sixth soul ring. When that happens, we won't be able to find out the flaws. Long Xie was astonished. Your heaven-defying martial soul isn't around. What other solution do you have? Make a guess, Wang Feng said. Long Xie was speechless. End of chapter. Chapter 1105. At this moment, Zhang Lishuan looked at Wang Feng hesitantly. Do you have a way? The flaw of this soul ring wasn't serious to her now. However, it was a hidden danger. Wang Feng said, of course. However, you might not be able to understand it now. Let's talk about it after I enter the Sea God's Pavilion. Zhang Lishuan was speechless. Is he doing this on purpose? Zhang Lishuan thought. Zhang Lishuan snorted and turned around to leave the stage. After that, she turned back to look at Wang Feng. Your cultivation method is completely different from Soul Master's. However, I have to admit that it's a very powerful and unique cultivation system. I'll report this to the elders in the Sea God's Pavilion. Her beautiful eyes flashed as she sized up Wang Feng. After that, she quickly left the stage. To her, the outcome of today's battle wasn't important. The most important thing was that she had seen a completely new world that she had never seen before. It wasn't just for everyone present. They saw a world that was even bigger, more majestic, more mysterious, and filled with possibilities than Soul Masters. Soul Contractor. These 3 words were imprinted in everyone's minds. Many young students were curious and looked forward to it. However, everyone's attention was focused on Wang Feng. Even the teachers from the outer courtyard were doing the same. Soul contractor. Is this a soul contractor? Zhou Yi sighed. There hasn't been a new cultivation system in the Douluo continent's tens of thousands of years of history. Although the world of soul masters is constantly changing, it hasn't left the same circle. No one had ever thought of working together with humans and soul beasts. No one had the ability or the courage to do so. However, this mysterious man in front of her had truly stepped into a realm that no human had ever stepped into in the Shrek Academy. Long Xie come back. Wang Feng's soul ring flashed, and Long Xie's huge body entered the soul ring's spirit domain. This kind of mysterious method was simply amazing. Cultivate well. Try to reach 10,000 years in half a year. Wang Feng transmitted his voice. No problem. Boss, why don't you give me another drop of essence blood? Scram. You can't take 2 drops of essence blood with your small body. At this moment, Zhou Yi walked forward and asked in a deep voice, May I ask if you're really the one who created this cultivation system? Of course. Wang Feng nodded, hearing the exact answer. The teachers fell silent. They could tell that the other party was able to fight to a draw with Zhang Lishuan, the top student of the inner courtyard. Zhang Lishuan had lost. However, Zhang Lishuan didn't use her full strength. Therefore, the other party also felt that the victory was not honorable. They both stopped after a certain point, so they said it was a draw. Looks like I just need to wait for the results. Wang Feng glanced at the 3 teachers. After today's battle, he should be able to enter the Sea God's Pavilion and play a round of cards. However, Wang Feng faintly felt that it was not that simple. Every time the system punched out a location, there would be a huge difficulty. If it was just a fight, it would be a piece of cake for Wang Feng. I believe that the Sea God's Pavilion will give you an answer very soon. Zhou Yi replied. Since that's the case, I won't disturb you any further. Wang Feng chuckled, withdrew his martial spirit, and walked straight down. He walked over to Hui Yuhao's side. Teacher, you're too amazing. Hui Yuhao looked at Wang Feng with admiration. Soul contractor. Is this the strength of a soul contractor? Hui Yuhao was very excited. He was even more excited than when he saw Wang Feng defeat the 10,000-year soul beast. That was the top student of the inner courtyard. He was so far away from him, who had just entered the academy. Teacher's knowledge is so rich. It's a pity. If only teacher could enter the Shrek Academy and teach me. Hui Yuhao thought to himself. Work hard. Wang Feng smiled as he looked at Hui Yuhao. He encouraged him. Sooner or later, Tanya and Bei Bei looked on enviously from his side. He's a good teacher. Wang Dong looked at Wang Feng, and a thought suddenly appeared in his mind. I will work hard. Well, Yuhao clenched his fists and continued Wang Feng's words. Sooner or later, I'll reach teacher's level. No. Wang Feng shook his hand. I'm asking you to work hard because I want you to know that if you don't work hard, you won't know how big the gap is between you and teacher. You'll never reach teacher's level. Hui Yuhao was speechless. Wang Dong was speechless. Tanya and Bei Bei were also petrified. They thought that Wang Feng was encouraging Hui Yuhao, but they didn't expect him to be so unpredictable. Puffed. Wang Dong laughed. On the other side, Xiao Xiao also covered her mouth and laughed. She looked at the awkward Hui Yuhao. Becoming his student should be a painful and joyous thing, right? Xiao Xiao thought to herself. However, even if that's the case, it'll be great if he's really my teacher. Don't worry, even if you can't reach teacher's level. Wang Feng patted Hui Yuhao's shoulder. You'll have a bright future. No one on the continent will be your match. Hui Yuhao chuckled. Although he didn't believe it, he was still very pleased with his teacher's encouragement. Oh yes, Elder Wang. Did you and Zhang Lishuan talk about anything else on the stage? Bei Bei asked at this point. We didn't really understand the fight just now. Wang Feng laughed. He couldn't talk about the flaws in Zhang Lishuan's soul skills so casually. He said that he wanted to help Zhang Lishuan because he wanted to enter the Sea God's Pavilion. Otherwise, he wouldn't have meddled in other people's business. I'll review it when I'm free. It'll be an experience for all of you. Wang Feng said casually. Thank you, Elder Brother Wang. Bei Bei nodded. Hee hee. Elder Brother Wang, we met so many students today. At this point, Tang suddenly asked curiously, I wonder which one of them left a deep impression on you? And so many beautiful girls? A girl's focus was indeed different from his. It was completely different from what Bei Bei had said. Wang Feng laughed and said, Your big brother Wang already has a wife. So many beautiful girls are nothing to me. Everyone was stunned when they heard this. You have a wife? Tang was astonished. This was too shocking. Xiao Xiao, who was in the distance, was startled. How could such a handsome big brother have a wife? It must be fake, right? Who's worthy of him? Of course. Wang Feng nodded. However, they're not here for the time being. Not here. Tanya and Bei Bei looked at each other. Do they pass away? Wait, something doesn't seem right. They're not in this world. They're in another world. Wang Feng said. Everyone's faces darkened when they heard this. Tanya and Bei Bei finally understood what was wrong with them. Another world? Elder Wang, please don't joke with us. Bei Bei laughed awkwardly. Wang Feng didn't explain further. He felt that he couldn't be a jerk anymore. He had to say this so that these girls who were lusting after his body would give up on that thought. At this point, Wang Dong suddenly opened his mouth. Wang Feng, Elder Wang, I'm very interested in becoming a soul contractor. I wonder if I can be your disciple. P.S. Today's update is 6 p.m. Vote more in a chapter. Chapter 1106. Become his disciple? Wang Feng glanced at Wang Dong. He stared at Wang Feng with an extremely sincere gaze, and a trace of reverence could be seen in his eyes. Evidently, the guy who had pretended to be her Uncle Feng had changed from a swindler to a true expert in her heart. New things were naturally extremely attractive. What's more, he was a soul charger. After this battle, not to mention the entire Shrek Academy, but basically all the students in the outer courtyard would know the weight and meaning of these 3 words. Why do you want to become my disciple? Wang Feng asked. I'm very curious about soul chargers, and I want to learn about them. Wang Dong's train of thought was clear. Then there's no need to... Wang Feng waved his hand. Even if I enter the Sea God's Pavilion, I'll still spread the word about soul chargers. Anyone can learn and explore soul chargers, and anyone can become one. You don't need to become my disciple because of this. Speaking of which, every soul charger would be his disciple in the future. In reality, becoming his disciple didn't mean much. Wang Feng only wanted to see the effects of a life soul contract if he wanted to take Hui Yuhao as his disciple. Other than that, he also needed to solve a few problems related to life soul contracts. For example, could soul contracts be broken? What would happen if a soul master hurt his soul beast? How could a soul master form a life soul contract with a soul beast? How would a soul master form a friendship with a soul beast? How would a soul master train a soul beast? Of course, these problems couldn't be solved overnight. Constructing a complete cultivation system wasn't something that could be done in a short period of time. However, Wang Feng wanted to present a rough framework to the world. Furthermore, he wanted this framework to be firm and able to withstand the impact of time. It also had to be able to withstand the addition of new things to this framework. After comprehending part of the law of life, Wang Feng looked at many things from the perspective of the world. A cultivation system would always have many branches. As long as the main framework didn't change, the system would continue to exist. Wang Dong was stunned when he heard this. It's not that easy to become a soul charger. Just do what you need to do. Wang Feng glanced at Wang Dong. Wang Dong fell silent after failing to become Hui Yuhao's disciple. Hui Yuhao thought to himself, it's extraordinarily difficult to become teacher's disciple. How could it be that easy? Come to think of it, at that time, he was only at level 10, so he could test his teacher's life soul contract. That was why he was accepted as a disciple. As he thought about this, he couldn't help but rejoice. Elder Wang, we're also interested in becoming a soul contract master. If you're free, why don't you tell us more about it? Tanya asked with a grin. Bei Bei hurriedly nodded as well. Logically speaking, battles with soul beasts were indeed very interesting. If he could imagine having a powerful soul beast by his side, how awe-inspiring would that be? Even if they were not strong, as long as they were good-looking and cool, they would still be very handsome, right? Wang Feng looked at the anticipation in their eyes, as well as the excited and curious gazes of the surrounding students. Suddenly, he realized something. For these children, their worldview had not yet been fully formed. After witnessing the battle with Long Xie, Yu Hao's concept of soul beasts had changed quite a bit. To them, the shocking performance of Soul Renderer was what attracted them the most. If I have time, I will. Wang Feng revealed a slight smile. After that, Wang Feng left the Shrek Academy and waited for news from the Sea God's Pavilion. The commotion caused by this battle quickly spread from the outer courtyard to the inner courtyard. Soul contract masters. Some people were disdainful, some were curious, some were watching, and some ignored for the soul master system that had existed for tens of thousands of years. The concept of soul masters hunting soul beasts to obtain soul rings was deeply ingrained. It wasn't something that could be changed with a single battle. For example, the Sun Moon Empire soul engineers had evolved from soul masters. After thousands of years of development, they were slowly introduced into the Federation. The Shrek Academy's Soul Tool Department had been established not long ago. Even the Sun Moon Empire, which had developed soul tool technology for thousands of years, didn't have a soul engineer system. It couldn't change the status of soul masters in the Federation. Wang Feng wasn't anxious. He had been cultivating peacefully over the past few days. The Shrek Academy also showed its magnanimity as the #1 academy on the continent. They specially arranged a residence for Wang Feng in the inner courtyard. He was also officially on the right path of cultivation. Wang Feng's residence was located in the southeastern part of the outer courtyard's teaching block. It was in a bamboo forest. This was where many of the outer courtyard's teachers lived. The wealthy Shrek Academy allocated a small house for every teacher. It was about 100 square meters in size. Even 2 people were enough, let alone 1. The Shrek Academy's teachers had a lot of benefits. Although their food, clothing, housing, and transportation weren't extremely luxurious, they were still better than ordinary soul masters. This was especially so when it came to food. Food was often directly related to a soul master's physique. Naturally, Yu Hao wouldn't fall behind. He was also officially on the right path of cultivation. He only needed to pass the freshman assessment 2 months later. Then, he would officially be a first-year student. His talent had increased slightly after he signed a life contract with a silver silkworm. However, he was still at the bottom of the pack. Fortunately, he was still very hard-working. One day, Wang Feng cultivated in Long Xie's courtyard. Long Xie had suffered a lot in that battle. However, it recovered very quickly in the soul domain. It was fully healed the next day. After that, it began to cultivate rapidly. It had to be said that fighting was very beneficial to a contracted soul beast, or rather to Long Xie. After obtaining the soul contract, Long Xie's cultivation speed increased even more when it was by Wang Feng's side. It was like sitting on a rocket. However, Long Xie's cultivation speed was so fast because of Wang Feng's essence blood. His essence blood wasn't like the essence blood of other soul masters. Now that it had undergone 5 energy tides, the origin energy of heaven and earth was very dense. Long Xie's cultivation speed was very fast. Wang Feng didn't have to worry about his foundation being unstable if he cultivated too quickly. The solution to this problem was to fight more. During the process of fighting, his soul power would gradually stabilize. This was because soul beasts needed to form their soul cores. Cultivating too quickly wasn't a good thing. If it didn't work, Wang Feng would personally beat Long Xie up. Soon, Wang Feng faced his first problem. It was related to the cultivation of a soul beast. There wasn't enough food. As soul beasts grew, their need for food would also increase as their size increased. Even though Long Xie's body was filled with muscles thanks to Wang Feng's training, his consumption of food had increased. Furthermore, it didn't need simple food. I think being a soul contractor will be a money-burning profession in the future. Wang Fengxin said. End of chapter. Chapter 1107. What a soul beast ate had a lot to do with its growth. Yu Hao's silver-patterned silkworm was fine. It only needed to eat some leaves. Long Xia was a stone crane beast. He had mutated, and his soul had lived for many years. He was very picky. Normally, a stone crane dragon would eat all kinds of rocks before digesting the energy in them. They weren't very difficult to cultivate either. However, Long Xia had a unique taste. How could a dragon like him eat rocks? Did he not care about his reputation? In the beginning, Long Xia ate casually. He ate whatever he wanted. As his cultivation gradually increased, food played a crucial role in the changes to his body and cultivation. You can't eat so casually in the future. Wang Feng looked at Long Xia and said, "You're a stone crane dragon. Eat more special ores that contain the origin energy of heaven and earth. They'll be helpful for your cultivation." Long Xia was speechless. "Boss, you can't do this to me, right?" Long Xia swallowed the thigh in his arms. "I can't eat enough ores. They're useless to me, and they're disgusting." "You haven't eaten them yet. How do you know they're disgusting?" Wang Feng said, "There are many special ores. Once you eat them, you might awaken some abilities in advance. It might even awaken your dragon god bloodline. Do I need to eat them? Are ores for humans to eat? They taste like shit." Long Xia shook his head. "You're not human. You're a beast. You're a stone crane beast. You like to eat rocks the most. Stop talking nonsense. Here, I have a few rocks that I brought from the Rainbow Mountain." Wang Feng took out a rock from his soul tool. "How do you know they taste like shit? Have you eaten them before?" The power of laws in the rock had disappeared. However, it was still a rock that had been given powerful laws by a godly king. It naturally contained a lot of energy. Long Xia's head shook like a drum. "This is to nurture you." Wang Feng continued. "If you want to surpass your previous self as a million-year-soul beast and become a powerful beast god, it's best for you to follow the cultivation plan that I've devised for you. Use scientific concepts to become stronger." "What's science?" Long Xia asked. "Your boss's words are science." Long Xia shut his mouth. Wang Feng took a big step forward and stomped on Long Xia's fat feet. In an instant, Long Xia's body trembled. Long Xia squealed like a pig being slaughtered. Wang Feng stuffed all the stones in his hand into Long Xia's mouth. "Gulp, gulp. How does it taste?" Wang Feng let go of Long Xia's leg and asked. Boss, the taste is really not bad." Long Xia didn't like it at first, but after chewing a bit, he realized that it tasted pretty good. It didn't taste like shit like what he had eaten before. "Nonsense, you are now in the body of a rock dragon, and your body is already adapted to the smell of stone. Your taste buds are completely different from your previous blood dragon form," Wang Feng said. "Why do you think dogs like to eat shit, but humans don't?" This was because a dog's body structure was completely different from a human's. In our mouth, it stinks. But in the mouth of a dog, it's fragrant. "Boss, why do I feel like you're scolding me?" Long Xia pouted as he chewed. "But the stones from the Rainbow Mountain are really fragrant. The energy in this stone is very compatible with the soul power in my body. I can also vaguely feel another type of energy." When Wang Feng left the five-color mountain, he took many things from around the mountain. Along with the energy tide, many natural treasures grew within the range of the five-colored mountain. However, most of them were occupied by soul beasts. However, the Rainbow Mountain wasn't occupied by any soul beasts. Wang Feng's soul tool contained many rocks from the pentacolored mountain. These were rocks that had burst out from the center of the pentacolored mountain when it cracked open. Under normal circumstances, these mountains contained godly king's laws, and they were one entity. It was impossible to move even one of them. Long Xia could absorb these stones now that he had 1,000 years of cultivation. Adding on the fact that their attributes were compatible, the evil dragon would probably grow stronger if it was fed for a long time. At this moment, a curious voice sounded. "Is this how you nurture your soul-bonded beast?" Zhang Lishuan had appeared outside the courtyard at some point. Wang Feng turned around and looked at her. He wasn't surprised and nodded slightly. Food can strengthen soul-bonded beasts. It's like how soul masters need to eat high-quality food to replenish their energy and become stronger. Different soul-bonded beasts are nurtured differently. Are you here to bring news from the Sea God's Pavilion? It had been 2 days, and the Sea God's Pavilion should have had some news by now. Zhang Lishuan shook her head slightly and said, Elder Xian and Elder Mu from the Sea God's Pavilion are still carrying out a special operation in the Central Martial Soul Palace. They won't be back for a few months. However, the other elders in the pavilion think highly of you. They've all agreed to let you join the Sea God's Pavilion, although I don't know what your motive is. Wang Feng acknowledged her words. Following this, Zhang Lishuan suddenly said, I'm here on behalf of the elders in the Sea God's Pavilion to invite you to be a teacher at the Shrek Academy. Wang Feng smiled. He was no exception to this. I'm not interested. Wang Feng shook his head. It was too troublesome to teach someone. What if you can enter the Sea God's Pavilion temporarily? Zhang Lishuan continued. If you want to enter the Sea God's Pavilion, you can only do so as a teacher from the inner courtyard. Otherwise, the elders won't allow an outsider to enter the Sea God's Pavilion. Wang Feng laughed and said, Isn't the requirement to become a teacher at the Shrek Academy very high? Why would they hire a rank 18 Soul Master as a teacher? Zhang Lishuan furrowed her brows and said, Please don't treat the people from the Shrek Academy as fools, especially the Sea God's Pavilion. A rank 18 Soul Master can't possibly fight me to a draw. It's also impossible for him to create a new cultivation system. Although I don't know who you are, where you came from, or what your motive is, I'm still a Soul Master from the inner courtyard. However, many teachers from the inner courtyard find it a little novel. It's a brand new cultivation method. They also want to understand Soul Masters. That's why they hired you as a teacher. Zhang Lishuan's words were clear and very serious. In 3 months, there will be a batch of new students taking the entrance test. Zhang Lishuan continued. If you want to bring the world of soul renters to greater heights, becoming a teacher is a good choice. After hearing this, Wang Feng felt that the Shrek Academy hadn't changed much. All right, Wang Feng thought for a while. I don't need too many students. A few will do. I'll set a precedent for you. Chapter 1108. Zhang Lishuan nodded. She was only here to convey the elder's suggestion. It didn't matter if they didn't agree. They could wait for Elder Xian and Elder Mu to return. Is there anything else? Wang Feng looked at Zhang Lishuan, who was still standing where she was. Zhang Lishuan glanced at him before she turned around and left. Boss, this girl probably wants to ask you how to solve the Soul Ring's flaw. Long Xia's heart was like a mirror. He could see everything clearly. Nonsense. Do you think I don't know? Wang Feng snapped. I haven't entered the Sea God's Pavilion yet. Why should I help her? The person in charge of the Sea God's Pavilion hasn't returned yet. I can't barge into the Sea God's Pavilion. Frankly speaking, he was just going to the Sea God's Pavilion to check in. There was no need for him to make such a big fuss. Furthermore, the Shrek Academy had a deep relationship with him. Oh, I thought you didn't know. Long Xia muttered. Wang Feng glared at Long Xia. Over the next 2 months, Wang Feng and Long Xia began to cultivate in seclusion. After eating the rocks from the Rainbow Mountain, Long Xia's body started to glow faintly. It looked pretty good. His cultivation speed and body speed started to decrease. The small bump on his back also started to grow. He would probably undergo his first mutation when he reached the 10,000-year level. Wang Feng estimated that Long Xia would become a 10,000-year soul beast in 5 months at this rate. This was unimaginable for soul beasts. As the first soul contract master, Wang Feng was a miracle. He would visit Long Xia every day and report on the silver-patterned silkworm situation. Sometimes, he would even bring grilled fish to Long Xia. Otherwise, Long Xia would get sick of eating rocks every day. In the 2nd month, his silver-patterned silkworm started to change. Thin and short silver patterns started to appear on its body. According to the Skydream iceworm, this was a sign that it was about to evolve or mutate. However, silkworms were naturally weaker, so it was easier for them to evolve or mutate. Coupled with the influence of their life contract, they would naturally evolve earlier. However, the silver-patterned silkworm was so weak that it would probably evolve many times. For example, the sky dream iceworm would shed its skin every time it evolved and become slightly stronger. Speaking of which, Hui Yuhao was indeed hardworking. Other than exercising every day, all he did was exercise. He didn't even give him time to rest. Along the way, Wang Dong had followed Hui Yuhao a few times. Their relationship wasn't bad. On one hand, he wanted to see Long Xie, and on the other, he wanted to know more about Wang Feng. Other than that, Jiang Nanan had also come twice, but it was only to thank Wang Feng for helping her in that battle. Other than helping Long Xie with his training, Wang Feng also released the egg from his soul tool from time to time. The Lin Lord of Ice Empress should be breaking out of its shell soon. If nothing unexpected happened, it would become Wang Feng's second soul-bonded beast. Wang Feng was looking forward to it. This egg had been nurtured by the Sky Dream Iceworm for countless years and was filled with a dense amount of innate energy. Thus, it was the most suitable vessel for a soul. Moreover, the consciousness of the evil devourer had been devoured by Lin Lord Bing Mu. In these 2 months, Wang Feng's soul force had reached rank 20. Since Lin Lord Bing Mu hadn't been born yet, Wang Feng didn't break through. After all, his soul power rank wasn't very important to him. After reaching rank 20, his first purplish origin pattern had finally awakened. However, the second pattern could only be awakened at rank 40. Therefore, Wang Feng couldn't reach rank 40 in the near future. The first purplish origin pattern awakened the power of judgment. To be precise, it was the power of judgment. It was the power of judgment, one of the 7 origin powers of the Origin Tribulation God King. In the courtyard, Wang Feng caressed the purplish origin pattern on his body. After awakening, this purplish origin pattern flowed with a light that resembled amethyst mercury. One could subtly feel a special and powerful energy undulation from it. The power of judgment represented the rules. It judged the heavens and the earth, and judged all life. Although it had just awakened, it was still extraordinary. Wang Feng stared at the blue sky. As the purplish origin pattern on his body lit up, Wang Feng suddenly grabbed towards the sky. In an instant, dark clouds churned in the sky, and countless dark, purple lightning bolts boomed. Purple lightning flashed in the sky, and the heavens might seem to announce the end of the world. "Damn, boss, what you doing?" Long Xie ran out of the soul bee space and looked at the sky in shock. "Why do I feel the aura of the heavenly tribulation? Don't tell me there's a soul beast undergoing the heavenly tribulation in the academy? I haven't even reached 100,000 years yet." Wang Feng's eyes flashed. At this moment, a crack as deep as an abyss appeared in the sky above Shrek City. The energy that shook the 9 heavens raged in the sky. In an instant, countless experts looked up at the sky with their hearts stirred. Several figures flew from the Academy's Sea Gods Pavilion to a height of 100 meters above the ground. They watched in astonishment. The enormous heavenly tribulation lightning seemed like it could fall at any time. The elders of the Sea Gods Pavilion were completely confused. What's going on? Is there a soul beast undergoing the heavenly tribulation? But how can there be 100,000-year soul beast in the Academy? That's the real heavenly tribulation lightning, not ordinary lightning. It's a terrifying heavenly tribulation lightning that could turn countless soul beasts into ashes. It controlled the rules of the world. Wang Feng's eyes flashed. Sure enough, the heavenly tribulation lightning could be controlled by the power of the heavenly tribulation lightning. It symbolized the rules of the world. As expected of the power of the Origin Tribulation Divine King, Wang Feng's long cultivation of the light and darkness martial soul was not in vain. However, the heavenly tribulation lightning consumed a lot of energy. Before it had completely descended, Wang Feng's soul power had already been reduced by half. Moreover, This purple origin that symbolized the power of the heavenly tribulation lightning could not only summon the heavenly tribulation lightning, it could also greatly enhance one's soul skills. If this purple origin was completely activated, Wang Feng estimated that he would enter a special state. His entire body would be greatly strengthened. It's a little strong. Wang Feng took a deep breath. He didn't expect this avatar to be so strong, even though it started from scratch. But thinking about it, this was the power of the origin of a divine king. And it was once the strongest origin tribulation divine king in the divine world. The angel of light and darkness martial soul was only the carrier of the origin tribulation divine king's power. The awakening of the first set of purple origin greatly enhanced the strength of Wang Feng's avatar. Wang Feng suddenly thought of what would happen if his avatar and main body merged into one. How strong would he be then? It wasn't impossible. He only needed to obtain the middle part or the lower part of the one chi into 3 pure ones. He waved his hand and hid the purple origin. The dark clouds and lightning in the sky immediately disappeared. The sky calmed down again as if nothing had existed. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.